Starting. Okay, we are live, everybody. Hey guys, so welcome to the open mic hangout. I haven't done one in quite some time, and I felt that under the circumstances, with the recent results of the United States presidential election, several people were asking me about my thoughts on the results, and I purposely have been very quiet about it for a while, mostly because I wanted to process everything before opening my mouth and saying anything. And instead of just having me post a individual blog of just my thoughts and musings, I thought it would be a lot more productive to have a very healthy, open communication, open discussion about the results, and just try to, involve the community, because I think that's really important right now at this time. I told everybody that is participating that first and foremost, this is a safe place. This always is going to be a safe place, and I will not tolerate anything that threatens that. There are many different views and opinions that are going to be represented here today during the Hangout. I specifically invited people who support Hillary, support Trump, support third party, support Bernie Sanders, didn't vote at all, and not only representatives from the United States itself, but also people around the world and in other countries too. So I think it's going to be a very interesting discussion. As I explained to everybody who is participating, understand that everybody here has their own individual opinions and beliefs, and we should respect that. It's okay for you to disagree with other people. So all I ask is that when you're presenting your opinion or your beliefs, be respectful in how you do it. And when you are receiving said opinion belief, be respectful on the receiving end as well. If you want to get into a short debate about something, that's fine. But if it takes if it gets lengthy, we don't want to spend half an hour debating on one issue when there are other issues that other people might want to touch on. So those are the ground rules. If you are just joining us right now, anybody is open, just like any other open mic hangout. If you are interested in joining us with us in this conversation, send me a private message, and I will try my hardest to add you into the rotation. We'll probably rotate people after each hour, just so that everybody has a chance to participate and share their thoughts and has a say. And just respect each other. Just be cool with each other. And because I think that part of this whole process requires us to be able to openly discuss how we're feeling, and that's really how we're going to be progressing as a nation, in my opinion. Part of this whole process requires us to be able to openly discuss. I guess what we're going to start is everyone to introduce themselves. So we'll just go around, and all I want you to do is just give us your name or how you want us to address you, and where you're from, and we'll take it from there. Why don't we start with Andrew?
Alrighty, well, great to be on Hark's channel once again. My name is Andrew. I run the Dawn Forgecast YouTube channel. I'm living in Colorado Springs right now, and very eager, as always, to participate in whatever Hark is doing. And it's going to be a good time.
Lucky Jack, why don't you go next?
Oh, okay. Hello, everybody. Good to be here again. It's always a pleasure to be in these hangouts. I am, of course, Lucky Jack 20. You can call me, if anyone wants to prefer me or anything else. I also answer to Logan, respond to Jack, respond to Snuff under random circumstances when it comes to gaming. But yeah, Lucky Jack. And I hail from West Coast, California, and the US of A.
Okay. Mark, you're next.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Mark3520, or you can just call me Mark, since that's my real name. And I am from the West Coast, just like Logan, and I live in the state of Oregon, a very wonderful place. And yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. And this is actually my very first ever open mic discussion, and something that I'm not very. tend to be a little sensitive about, so just a little bit of a notice.
Okay. All right. Why don't we go with Joe next?
Oh, hey. My name is Otaku Joe. You can call me Joseph. Thank you for inviting me. I'm from Seattle, Washington, and that's pretty much it.
Sure. Carson.
Hello, everyone. My name is Carson, or as I'm known on my channel, Self-Suited Carson. And just for a heads up right now, I'm still a little bit sick, so I'm just going to sound a little quiet half the time than I usually do. But yeah, I've been good friends with Hawk for a very long time, especially Lucky Jack. And honestly, I'm here because Hawk invited me, and whenever he invites me, I have a duty to come out and have a good time with my friend. And also, I do want to say that two things. One, I am the one guy who wrote in Bernie Sanders, I guess. And two, hashtag CalExit.
Okay. Thank you, Carson. Spells?
Hello, I am Super Spells, and you could also call me Calum. I live in the state of Maryland. I unfortunately didn't get to vote during this election because I worked that day, and by the time I got off of work, the polls were closed. But I have tried to be very attentive in this election. So,
okay.
That's about it.
Thank you, Spells. Matt?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
I'm not
Yes.
sure.
Yes.
Okay, working. Huzzah. No, my computer just upgraded and it decided to make my sound card not work. My name's Matthew Lang. I'm in Australia, so I am not really connected to the US elections other than that it's been clogging up my newsfeed and my airwaves. And everyone's currently going nuts down here. So, hi.
And then last but not least, Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
I am the Shogun, and all will obey. And if case this intro has not told you what my presence here will be,
I also am very historically attuned.
Mm-hmm.
For example, the Electoral College was invented out of necessity due to how we did not have electronics back in the day. So in order to everyone get their votes counted, the area had to cast all their ballots, read them one by one, and then that area said, we vote Democrat, and so on and so forth. Population, you got three electorates to 2, 1. If you live in the Arizona, Bill. But again, with the advancement of technology, do we still need it? Well,
we'll get to that. We'll get to that, Mike. Where are you from really quickly, Mike?
Virginia.
Virginia. All right, cool. Again, if you guys don't know me, my name is Angel Arts, and I will be facilitating this discussion to the best of I can. And the 9 or 8 people who are going to be participating promise to be gentle with me as I try to meander my way here. Just a few notes for those of you who are watching. Unfortunately, they made an update on Hangouts such that the chat feature doesn't work the way it did before. I know before that we had the ability for people to post questions and to post topics and things. They turned that off for the time being, so my apologies for that. At the moment, there's no way for me to get around that. The other thing is, for those of you who are watching this video on YouTube after the fact, the respect with each other and for each other's opinions, of course, also goes towards the comments as well. If you know me, I watch the comments like a hawk, and again, if I see any disrespect going on between anyone, no matter whether I know you or not personally, I will start deleting things. If your contributions in the comment section are not constructive or at minimum, destructive. So just keep that in mind. I do want to begin the dialogue here, and just express, at least in my opinion, that just to start things off, that if you are in a position where you are pleased with the results, I believe that those people have the right to be pleased by the results. They have a right to be happy with the results, and they have the right to celebrate with their results. And at the same time, if you are on the side that is not particularly pleased with the results, that I think that everybody is coping in it in their own sort of way. You know how they talk about, there's all these different phases of grief. Some people are in denial, some people are frightened, some people are angry, some people are frustrated, some people are grieving, some people are, many different, there's a giant spectrum. And I think that it's important to know that the people who are going through that, they have the right to feel the way that they feel, and that they have a right to go through these stages at their own pace. You might have reached this particular stage and someone else might be at this particular stage. Just be sensitive to that and understand that everybody is ranting or dealing with whatever the result was in their own way. And I think that we should be mindful of that as we move forward. I want to know if anybody has any opening thoughts, just to get the conversation rolling.
Well, first off, I have seen already a lot of backlash at my college campus, in fact, at Sacramento State. And I mean, I'm all for protests. It's completely fine. It's a normal thing to do. But, I think it's a little bit childish to use profanity, and it really makes me feel like I can't come on board with you. But, I do support them. I do agree. Hey, I want to protest with you and everything. I think it's fair to protest. And I've heard already people are like walking out of schools, and probably as a future teacher or potential FBI agent, really does affect everyone's education and affects the whole system as a whole. And for the House Goodman, you brought up something I wanted to talk about earlier. So curse you, man.
Someone else wants to say something? Go ahead, Mike.
A lot of problems have been protests and other such, but just if there was any illusion that the protests are because of Trump, that Trump caused this protest, these sparks of rage, he did not. The situation would be happening one way or another. People would be protesting if Hillary won, if Trump won. It was an inevitability. All that would be happening is, instead of claims of he is unqualified, he is a bully, a sexist, all these remarks, that language would only change to the system is rigged. Hillary's a criminal, and so on and so forth.
Before I continue, I did want to welcome Natalie. Hey, Natalie, I think you got muted. Hold on, let me see if I can help you out there. Give me a second. There you go. I think you're unmuted now, Natalie. Or you were. Do you want to say hi, Natalie? Natalie, where are you from, by the way?
I don't think my microphone is on. Wait, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. We can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm Natalie, and I live in Washington.
Well, welcome to the live stream.
Washington
State.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No, of course, no problem. Since you just came on, did you have something specific that you wanted to, that's on your mind that you wanted to share which I definitely would like to know that, especially from a female perspective, especially. You don't have to if you're not ready. You don't have to.
I guess other people could go first because
Okay.
I'm still kind of thinking.
Yeah, go ahead. Did somebody else want to go next? Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, spells.
All right.
And
Okay.
yeah, Joe and then Logan. Go ahead.
Okay, first off, I want to say, personally, because I live in the state of Washington, I voted for Jill Stein, a third-party candidate. Now, a lot of people are going to say, it's your fault, you voted third party, it's your fault that Trump is president. The only reason I voted for Jill Stein is because I know for a fact Washington State is going to be solely for Hillary. It's strong blue state. So me voting for Jill Stein was kind of like my protest instead of me going out to the streets, because where I live, literally people are right outside the streets, even today, even tonight. And but like I said, they're going to say it's your fault, you voted third party. But I always told people, if you are in a swing state, do vote for Hillary. But I felt, being in Washington, it was safe to vote for third party because it was going to go to Hillary anyways. So, but I know we're going to get a lot of backlash of, because you voted third party, it's your fault, even though there was very low percentages all across the board. So that's all I got to say for right now.
Mike, it looks like you have a response to that.
Specifically to this has been going on for a long time and for a lot online. If you voted third party, you voted Trump. If you didn't vote, you voted Trump. A lot of things led to Trump. It was not specifically because someone voted third party or not.
Matt, did you want to respond to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, interestingly, there was a lot of numbers being run in one of the chats that I was in over, I guess, your election night. And one of the things that has come out of the post-exit polls is that more Democrats voted for Trump than people voting third party. And even if you assume that all the people voting third party then went on, would have voted for Hillary, I mean, that's usually not the case. So saying that third party votes cost America this election, I mean, that's a bit of a big call.
I believe that Logan wanted to say something too. Go ahead, Logan.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I probably will not be able to stay too long because I still have dinner actually being prepared as we speak. But anyway, I did just want to get out some of my opinions over what's been happening. That yes, I agree, Andrew. But so I suppose I should say I wasn't fully surprised with the result of what was happening, especially after seeing, because first of all, I guess just to put it out there, no matter what the result was going to be, I think that historically, at least in the past, I would say maybe 3-4 decades roughly, that this was probably the dirtiest election that I've ever seen happen between both candidates on either end. And there was a matter of honestly, like, usually I can at least say, I'll pick this person, I agree with them on one point, but between both candidates, both had a lot of strong reasons why I didn't like them. I mean, I think at the time, I was one person that I saw one opinion say that Trump represents everything wrong with American culture condensed into one human being, whereas Hillary Clinton represented everything wrong with the government system compressed into one human being. But honestly, seeing now that Trump has won the presidency, because, and I'll let you guys carry that topic on later, I will agree that I think the Electoral College system is a bit of an outdated system, especially when I just didn't really like the idea that there could be a popular vote, but then an electoral vote. It should just be the popular vote. It'd be so much simpler, I guess, in that world. But I'll say right now that I don't think I have anything wrong against Trump as a human being. I feel like some of the things that he wants to do, and I'll say, yeah, I voted Clinton, but I saw that I see Trump, and I see someone who I think wants to try to prove people wrong or prove that he's capable. I think what I'm most worried about with this election is not even so much Trump. I'm worried about not, and I'm going to say right now, I'm not lumping everyone into one big group. I definitely know that there are extremes to everything. I am most concerned about people who are on the extreme end of supporting Trump.
Okay.
I'm not saying I'm mad against everyone who voted, but I am worried, concerned about people who would act out in the interest of what Trump has said or is condoned with. He has condoned on a number of occasions a sort of vigilante-like behavior that we should take back. Erase, get rid of the corruption in the government, but also take back the country by force, which a lot of people could misinterpret. And as we've been seeing over the past less than 48 hours, some people reacting violently on both ends of this whole thing.
I saw a bunch of hands go up. So let's go with Mark. That's fine. Let's go with Mark, then Spells, then Carson, then Matt.
All right.
Mark.
Thank you. All right. I'll actually agree with Logan, because this is coming from a guy who hasn't voted, because I felt like I didn't like both candidates, both Trump and Clinton, because I felt like that the promises that they made, I didn't feel like they would be able to live up to what they promised. And now with Trump being the winner, I'm still shocked, and also I felt like it's a lot of feelings that I'm feeling right now, but
yeah,
I can't express it into words.
Spells.
I don't know how popular this opinion is, but the thing that I have said, at least I know I talked to Matt about it a few times, was I didn't believe there were really any good options. And the primary two, both Hillary and Trump, I had a grocery list of problems and complaints that I really didn't like about them. And they only had a few redeemable qualities between them, in my opinion. It just really depended on which one you thought went for your interest more. Like one of my coworkers said, they both have had things hiding in the back, or skeletons in the closet, as she put it. And whatever happens, they're going to come out regardless. And honestly, it's okay to protest, and it is your right as an American citizen to protest, but the thing is that we all need to keep it peaceful, because the peaceful transition of power is what is the backbone of democratic societies. It's what keeps us from devolving in our form of government.
Carson, and then Matt.
Well, first off, Logan, you might actually agree. There's a good old dead president that would agree with you. According to my history class, his name was Andrew Jackson. He did want the popular vote instead of the Electoral College. He wanted to get rid of that. Mark, I do feel you, and I, as I done to Hawk before, I have patted his hand, and I pat your hand too. And
oh, thanks.
No problem, bud. No problem. But to Super Spells, I do agree with you 100% on a peaceful transition, and people have to try and be controlled by their emotions, but it's there we go, sorry. But it's very difficult when people are just so entrenched with them. And that's why I wrote in Bernie Sanders, because there we go, just having troubles. I'm a little sick. It's just that I had to stand by principle, and I wanted to stand by the guy I believed in. And for Inkwell, curse you for having him first. But I do agree with what most of you are all saying. For me, I had to write in Bernie Sanders, even though people told me, hey, your vote's not going to count. Your vote's a waste. Well, I said, well, in that case, it's a vote I'm willing to waste. And so anybody who voted third party, don't feel like your vote was wasted because you wrote in what you believed and what you stood by. It doesn't care if you're libertarian, green, apparently, I might say it wrong, Evan McMullen, he's independent, I believe. You stood by that belief, and you know what? I mean, and that's what I was trying to bring up earlier. It's just like I'm okay with protests and everything. Everyone is okay to protest; they have that right. But when it starts to get violent, use profanity language, or just flat out disrespect without even like trying to say, okay, here's the reasons why, and you're just laying out political arguments why you don't agree with them, then your message dies out, and that I couldn't agree with in general. I just couldn't agree with in general. So that's why I said, look, I respect the will of the people. So at least my voice was heard in its own way, even if, like, let's say the 13,000 people who voted for Harambe, their message was heard too, which was a little funny, but at least they meant it, I guess. But other than that, I have nothing else to say.
Matt, and then it looks like Mike, and I would like to have Andrew speak after Mike. Go ahead.
Evan Mulligan. Just
Go
Evan.
ahead, Matt. Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, there are a few things that I suppose I wanted to touch on. Logan mentioned the whole thing about different groups of people who were voting and different groups of people who are celebrating, and he did touch upon the fact that there are a number of extremists out there. And I think one of the big issues, if you look at historical precedents, which are very recent with the Brexit vote, and the reasons that people voted for that, a lot of people who voted for Trump, according to the analysis that I've seen, was that people voted for him for very similar reasons to the reasons that the people in the UK voted to leave the European Union, which is that they're not seeing the benefits that are coming from the capitalism and the globalization that is going through. When you overlay the vote across the map of the US, the people who vote blue are predominantly in tiny pockets of urbanization and city areas. The people who were voting very heavily for Trump, but definitely for Trump, were in places that don't have jobs, that don't have any economic prospects, who don't see all the benefits coming in. So there's that side of things. You've also got the issue where it would be very nice if all the protests and everything could be peaceful, and whether or not there would be any if the situation was reversed is, well, probable. But one of the issues is that not everyone who voted for Trump would be what I suppose we might classify as a bigot, but a lot of people who we would classify as bigots, if not all of them, voted for Trump. I mean, we've got the KKK as the prime example that everyone's talking about right now. And then we've also got the fact that if you look up all the day one Trump Twitter posts and things that are going up, we're now seeing the exact same rise in hate crimes in America that we saw in Europe. Well, not Europe, but specifically the UK. We're seeing people Muslims having their headscarves torn off and being told you're next. We're seeing Hispanic people being verbally assaulted and being told go back to where you came from. We're seeing black people having their property vandalized and saying, fuck off. Well, okay, I'm going to use the word because I just saw a post saying it, nigger. And then Trump scrolled underneath on the windshield. So, protests need to be peaceful. One of the biggest problems with the rhetoric of the recent Republican campaign, similarly to what has been used in the Brexit campaign through the UKIP and independents there, is that it has enabled all this racist, xenophobic, homophobic extremes to, I suppose, think that everyone who voted for Trump is one of them. So, it would be nice to think that things would be different. I think if there were any protests, if Hillary had won, they'd be in different locations. And I don't know I really don't. I do have other things to say about the voting process, but I've spoken too much. So someone else say something, and we can come back to that when the conversation rolls around to there.
Mike, and then Andrew, and then Natalie. Go.
I'll gladly talk about the voting process. The popular vote can no longer be be denied. We're getting to the point where it is people are really starting to get frustrated with disenfranchising their vote. It was a big reason why, which led to Trump. Again, a lot of things led to Trump. The third-party votes, the some people absentee voting. But what I think, one of the big reasons I thought led to it was, my man's going to support me on this, but Bernie Sanders. The DMC primaries are what really drove people to Trump. When the superdelegates, all of the seemingly rigged systems against Bernie, all of those things really left people with a sour taste in their mouth. They felt like their vote was disenfranchised. So when Trump comes along saying the system's rigged, they don't want me to win, your vote doesn't matter, that really resonated with the Democrats who felt like their votes were being ignored, that the system was, the establishment was enforcing their will on the public, whether your vote counted or not.
Andrew.
All right. Well, I want to touch on something that Hark said at the beginning, and if along the lines of, if your side won, you have the right to feel happy. And I will say that I voted for Trump, and I did not feel happy while I was doing it. I was not satisfied whatsoever. But of the choices that I had, as many have echoed, they were pretty pathetic. Trump is a terrible human being, and Hillary is a criminal and all sorts of other things. She represents the elite, the establishment that has been in place for such a long time. Bush, Clinton. Let's just kind of share this crown around. I think a lot of people were really pushing back against that. Like Matt said, I think he said, it's not all people who voted for Trump are bigots and hate gays and hate Mexicans and all this stuff. It's not at all the case, based on my experience with the people I've talked with, that they were believing that at all. And I think it's also not correct that someone would vote for Hillary, or that you didn't vote for her because she's a woman. No, it has nothing to do with it for most people. You didn't vote for her because a bunch of other reasons that have nothing to do with that. And it seems like to me why this is so shocking and surprising is that we've become rather isolated in our own kind of think tanks, the own sounding rooms, and the media and kind of people who talk the loudest, I find, are more on the liberal side, and conservatives, like the silent majority is what they're called. They don't kind of speak up very often, or in just kind of small elements here and there. But by proclaiming, by putting all this stuff, all this emotion, all this talking about this terrible election, it kind of, you didn't have room for other opinions, and you just kind of assumed that, sorry, not you, but that side kind of assumed that anyone who votes for Trump or even wants to support him hates all these things. I think the main argument was they don't like what Hillary stands for. They are sick of the establishment. They're sick of people telling them that if they feel somehow that they don't like someone, you must not like them because you're racist or sexist or homophobic or whatever. And there's a lot of people just, really fed up with that. No, I don't like them because they're not good at the job that I want to hire someone for. Things along that nature. There's so many people that were just, things are not good for me. 8 years, it's great that you had hope and change. Neither of them happened for me. Not me personally, I had a great year, but the other, a lot of people really dissatisfied with just the thing as a whole. And I think really important to keep in mind, it is not about like, oh, half of America are racists and bigots. And I don't think that is the case whatsoever.
Thank you, Andrew. I personally don't believe that either. Natalie, I believe you're next. Go ahead, please.
All right. So, about what people were saying at the beginning of the Hangout, about what was happening like on campus and stuff. About a lot of comments like after Trump won, there were a lot of kids who were joking around and making comments to other people about some of the things that Trump has said, especially about the grabbing women and what he has said about people of color, I guess you could say. I'm sorry, I don't really know what to say.
No, it's okay. It's okay. Do you want me to move on to somebody else, or do you still have some thoughts?
I still have something. Yeah, I still have thoughts.
Go ahead.
So I am like nowhere near the age of being able to vote. I'm only like 13. But at my school we had a mini election, and students got to see who they would pick, and they also got to take a quiz just to see who they would. So sorry, I can't really talk today. To see who they agree with the most, and a lot of it was Hillary, and very few were third party or Trump, but also, well, same as some of the kids who were making jokes about things that Trump said. Kids who were supporting Hillary, they were saying stuff like, "Oh, people who chose Trump are racist and sexist," and it's like we can't make the assumption about people if we don't even know them or anything. And that on both sides, we both need to respect others' opinions, and that I don't really like Trump, and some of the stuff that he has said is very disrespectful, to say the least.
Okay.
And that we should just be respectful of others' opinions and not make a fool of ourselves by saying something absolutely horrible.
Those are very good points, Natalie. Thank you. Thank you. And from somebody of your age, like that's very commendable and very impressive in my opinion. I would like for Carson to speak, because Carson has to actually leave shortly. But I do actually have a question for you, if you don't mind, Natalie, after Carson speaks, and then we'll get to spells. And I think Mike after that. Go ahead, Carson.
No.
If you have any questions,
Okay.
If you have any questions, I can quickly answer them. Just quickly, of course.
No, Carson, I just want to give you the chance to just give whatever final thoughts you have before you have to go.
My final thoughts are, personally, yes, there are people who do disagree with the Electoral College system, The founding fathers set it up. As a history major, I have to know this. The founding fathers set it up because they wanted to create some kind of balance, but it is an outdated system. It is a system that they created because they wanted to be based on population and representatives, et cetera, but it's too much detail to go into. Honestly, I can't describe it. It's just very difficult to describe. But now to my final thoughts. For House Goodman, he did mention this as a still strong Bernie Sanders supporter. He mentioned that, and I would mention now, that Bernie has not ruled out the idea of a 2020 election. And no, I'm not talking about the Kanye West thing, that it was completely ridiculous, just in my opinion. But for sure, 100%, if Bernie Sanders does run for 2020, and as gets possibly, I don't care if he's an independent nominee, I will 100% throw my hat in for him, because I had, after the whole DNC corruption thing, which for those who don't know about that, I'm hoping Hawk will talk about that later in the future. But after that whole corruption deal had happened, I had even text Hawk. I think I texted you of this. I told you I went from Democrat to independent, right? Yeah, I did. Okay. And so I had to switch my party affiliation because of that, because I felt betrayed by the party I had believed in 2008. And so I wrote in Bernie Sanders because I wanted to stand by principle. And I didn't vote for Trump at all because I couldn't stand him, because I felt like he was a very, very super rich, super powerful, and like he's out of touch with America because he was born in the rich and will stay in the rich. And Hillary had worked her way up to the rich, and she was proven to be a two-face, like not like the criminal Two-Face, the Batman one. I will watch your Let's Play on that later, Hark. But yeah, I'm never playing the game. But I just felt like I couldn't trust a Two-Face or a proven liar. So I said, you know what? Out of principle, I just have to write in who I believe in. And I would have written in Harambe too if I'd known I could have written in Harambe. Just throwing that out. I would have done that. But yeah, I just had to vote by principle. And for those who know about the whole thing that's blowing up, the Cal exit thing, which I personally support, I've supported that not because of the election or because Trump won the election. I'm doing it because I see myself as a Californian first and then as American, or you could see them as vice versa. But overall, I believe in Cal exit as a principle of saying, hey, if California leaves, that's cool. If we can't leave, that's even fine. We'll just wait 4 years for Bernie. But yeah, so I say right now, as an independent, that for the women who had to suffer this huge travesty, and from like my friends Angel Arts and anyone else who is homosexual or heterosexual, anyone out there, I know it's very difficult right now. And there, as my dad has always taught me, is to endure, but it will be a very, very tough time right now. And I'm just going to say to fight through it, like always. And for the people who have voted for Trump, like Andrew, I will warn you will be receiving a lot of hate, but I still say stand strong. And even if you didn't believe in the guy, just stand by your beliefs at least. And that's all I wanted to say. So thank you. I'm out of here, guys. Have a good day.
Wait, Carson, before you go.
What?
Carson, I have a screen share. If everyone could please just pay mind to it for 1 second.
I'm willing to wait.
Okay.
Carson, if you please.
I see that. I see that.
Thank you, Mike.
I
Have a
did
nice
see.
day, Carson.
Yeah, I did see a Queen
Okay.
Hillary thing, but we're moving on from that. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you, Carson, for coming.
Bye,
you,
have a
Carson.
blessed day.
Bye.
See ya.
If you're just joining us right now, by the way, I am trying to rotate some seats into this hangout, maybe shortly after the hour. Eric, if you're watching, Sean, if you're watching, and Reclusiarch, David, if you're watching, first comes to first serve. Whoever wants to grab Carson's seat, it should be open now, and you should have the link. I wanted to double back and ask Natalie a question because
Sure, go ahead.
Natalie, again, as somebody who isn't at the age yet who is able to vote, I believe you're in middle school right now. I just
Eighth grade.
Eighth grade. I just wanted to get a pulse, just from the rest of the people in your class. I'm sure your friends have talked about the election before. I just wanted, like, in your own words, just in general, what are the general feelings or consensus of your friends about the results of the election?
Well, a lot of my friends, I'd say that some of them have some fears.
Fears, like, for example,
One of my friends, I'm not going to say her name, so
don't say it. Go ahead.
you don't need to worry about that. She has been afraid that her mother might end up being deported because she's not a legal U.S. citizen.
Mm.
And that's scary stuff, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually, now that I think about it, that's the only real thing that comes to mind. But me personally, I would say I'm a pansexual, so...
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of the stuff that has been said, and I haven't really been following up with everything that some of the candidates have said, but we are like doing stuff about it in like social studies, and also in personal time through social media.
First off,
First
off, Natalie, thank you for sharing what I think is a very private part of yourself to us. You didn't have to do that, but I appreciate you doing that. Secondly, for the people do you have friends who were happy with the results of Trump? And if so, do you consider them to be bigots? Do you consider them to be racist? Do you consider them to be, I'm just curious, amongst the people that you know.
Actually, I don't think I know anyone who is a Trump supporter.
Okay.
Actually, one person. But no, he's still my friend, and if he wants to support him, he can go right ahead. I mean, it's not... I mean, like, we shouldn't hate people for one indecision, you know? And he's a very nice person. And he likes to make people laugh, so...
Thank you for your honesty, Natalie.
Why should my opinion change just because of one simple thing?
I think, was it Matt who wanted to speak next? Or Spells, excuse me, Spells. Go ahead.
I briefly wanted to touch back on the people that feel that votes are wasted. Keep in mind that California itself is a very, very strong blue state, and it was almost certainly going to go for Hillary, and yet still just a little bit over 3 million people went out and voted for Trump anyway because they believed that was the right thing for them to do. So whether or not you voted third party or didn't vote at all, as long as you believe what you did was right, there's nothing that can really take that away from you. And the voting polls were a huge turnout this year. I think there was news media saying that they had achieved their estimated numbers for voters during early polling this year. And I agree with Andrew with the news media echo chambers, and that's partly because misinformation and news travels faster than truth these days because technology is just so far advanced. So the political propaganda, it's really hard to say what's fact and fiction half the time. And lumping groups of people together won't help. We saw what sort of damage that did to Hillary's campaign whenever she mentioned the basket of deplorables. That was not a very good move. And overall, I think not only the Electoral College is outdated, but a lot of government system is outdated. Like, for example, the Supreme Court. They're in there for however long they want to be in there. There is no refreshing of that. They're, as far as I'm aware, they're in there for life until they either want to quit or die of old age or whatever. So I'm one of the people that think that we need to have periodic re-elections of people in the House and the Supreme Court more often than we already do.
Cool, cool. I believe, by the way, that Andrew is leaving us maybe temporarily. He might come back. Andrew, do you want to say anything before you leave, at least for now, or are you good for the time being?
I think could certainly go on for a while, but one thing I found very interesting, and I can just share this, and I think it's indicative of a lot of things with the state of our country and why I think there was such a surprise or the sense of being overwhelmed that he won. I read was that 95% between the ages of 18 and 25, the millennials essentially, 95%. And so that's a staggering amount. And I also saw a report, which I felt went right along with this, where in multiple universities, students are getting like counseling and they get left off. They don't have to take their midterms and they're getting comfort dogs and this kind of thing because their feelings were hurt, because their emotions were shattered, or maybe some more realistic fears. And to have that together, that idea that my feelings are better than facts, that if you feel something, then you are culpable, you're not allowed to feel certain things, and will shame you into not feeling them, just kind of to reiterate, it felt like a lot of people were sick of that. And it wasn't exactly a vote because we like Trump. We don't. Most people, aren't in favor of that guy. He's crude, and I wish there was some candidate I could vote for who was virtuous, but didn't find that this time. But I just to quickly try and touch on Matt's question, why did I vote for him? It's always been my policy, and I shouldn't be surprised, but it's my policy that I don't vote for the candidate. I vote for the platform. I vote for the issues, and that's ultimately what they're going to do. I personally think that Trump was hamming it up. I don't think it's his actual viewpoints to get more media attention, to polarize things. But even so, if what I'm looking for is foreign policy and fiscal policy and more jobs and tax adjustments and things of that nature, I could care less who does it, as long as it gets done, as long as our Supreme Court gets well, I hate the whole system, but I would suppose if I had to do it, I would say less government is better. I'm a libertarian by heart, but the third-party candidates were not appealing either. But just to walk away, I'm really glad that we're having this discussion. I think Hark's done a great job to facilitate it. We've all been really civil to hear these different points of view. I don't think that people need to be worried about being deported or that there's a wall or anything. I don't think it's going to happen. It's very kind of absurd to me that would actually be what plays out. There's too many other pieces in place. Trump can't just do those kind of things, nor do I think he really wants to. So, well, thank you on everyone's side. I really hope everyone is able to vent, let go of it, and then realize we're mostly the same. Us Americans, we mostly want the same thing in life for our country. So we'll get back to loving ourselves and each other soon enough, I really hope.
Thank you, Andrew. Cool.
Yeah.
And if Andrew, if you're able to come back later, then that'd be great. But thank you for saying that and for hanging out for us for as long as you did so far.
Yeah, thank you guys. Good night.
Andrew.
Before we continue on, really quickly, I wanted Dylan a chance to introduce himself to the group, and then we'll let him speak after a number of other people get to speak. But Dylan, why don't you give us how you want us to address you as and where you're from?
Hey everybody, so it's good to see everyone again that I've met so far, and if I'm new to meeting you guys, a pleasure to meet you. I've just real quick, Hark, I was watching so far on YouTube, and really want to congratulate you and everybody else for having such an open, honest, like non-riot, I guess, discussion about everyone's opinion. And yeah, I'm from Louisiana, but I'll go get to the back of the line at this point.
Okay. Cool. It's good to have you, Dylan. It always is good to have you. Why don't we, I think Spells wanted to say something, and if you allow me to, I'd like to say something too. So Spells, go ahead.
I guess I'll just bring up the point that I did in chat of this election was a lot less about what the candidates are willing to do for the people and the country, and more, at least to me it seemed, more about how much mud they could throw on the other person to make themselves look more appealing. Right now, I feel like a lot of the fear around Trump is that he's a giant question mark. He's an unknown factor. We have honestly no idea what he's gonna do or what he's capable of doing. He's said that, for example, he's willing to cooperate with Putin, where Hillary clearly was not. But we don't know if that's going to happen. We don't know if his giant wall threat is going to happen because he's, for one, he's not in office yet. But like Andrew said, there is a very prevalent theory that a lot of it was showboating to get votes, and then his real demeanor is going to show through soon. And I think part of a large amount of disenfranchisement a lot of people are feeling is that we aren't really being given all our options because we only have two primary choices. Our third-party candidates, people said that they're not that great, but you also have to bear in mind that they haven't been given the exposure before to say something really dumb until this election, really. So I think if we are able to give more exposure to our third party, they will beef up, and also competition breeds excellence. So if it's just between the Democrats and the Republicans all the time, that's not much room for competition.
Very good point, Spells. Thank you. I really briefly want to let Eric introduce himself. Eric, do you just want to say your name and where you're from, please, really quickly before I continue?
My name is Eric. I'm from Pennsylvania. Is there anything else beyond that? Oh, good.
No, good. That's good for now. We'll get to your.
Okay. Okay.
Matt said there's a topic he wants to talk about, but I want to do that after Dylan and Eric get a chance to share some things first. So Lucky Jack, I know that you're going to be leaving us soon. Do you want to give some final thoughts before you exit?
All right. Again, I really do appreciate and thank you for taking time out of your evening to arrange this to give people because I can imagine with all that's been going on, a lot of people, as we're seeing in the comments and the people who've been joining us, a lot of people have things that have been either been bridling that I haven't had a chance to discuss or really mull over these with anyone yet, or if it just gives them a chance to share their opinions. I appreciate that you're giving a sort of venue for them to do that, or a platform. I have here because I was also, this is one of the main things I was looking at over the past this morning and yesterday when I was off work. It's a fact check, but it was outlining Donald Trump. It was what he had proposed as his 100-day action plan. If anyone had not had a chance to look at that yet, this is basically it's no guarantees yet, but it is plans that he wanted to try and make his prerogative when he was if he was to become president, which is now. Again, I can see the justification in some of his actions in the sense of like what are some of his plans, which I think is something that a lot of people, at least I can agree because I was one of them early on the election. Early on the election, not a lot of people took Donald Trump that seriously because we thought he was like a lot of people thought he was almost like a joke candidate at first because he's an elite businessman and people were making the jokes of wow, how more exemplified and how more direct an example do you need of corporations being involved in the government than a corporation leader being a president? But I think if you actually, I will give him credit that if you do take the time to look into what, like, so, for instance, some of his policies are globally, what some of his international policies are, what he's trying to do, if you start to take him at least a little seriously and look into them, I can see some merit in what he's doing. I do, though. I still, as I was saying earlier, I do not have hatred for him as a human being, though he has made a lot of poor choices. I think that he is still in a position where he could demonstrate some level of maturity and do something to, he's not going to have it easy. He's in a pretty big hot seat right now to try and prove to everybody that he can do this and to try and bring back whatever this tumultuous, this last couple of days has been. I think a big thing that I've been noticing, which I'm curious to see what other people's opinions are, is that a lot of people are also concerned that with this election, most of Congress it's now become a majority of Republicans now involved in that, which people have become concerned with. At least what I've been seeing on social media is a lot of people becoming concerned with that because this could potentially mean that they could dominate the vote. All Republican policies could be pushed through if they have the entire majority there. And so I can only hope that some form of check or balance could be implemented. To an extent, a lot of it is kind of a crapshoot. I mean, I've been having to make sure that I can be safe, that some of my friends that have been contacting me, some of them who are ethnic minorities who have been saying that they no longer are beginning to feel safe in some of their neighborhoods, that I have to try and tough through. And I have no idea what I'm going to really do with the Cal exit thing when that starts to blow over. I'm just trying to exercise the best judgment I can going through with this. But worst case scenario, we only have him for 4 years. Best case scenario, maybe he manages to prove everyone wrong. That's all I can really hope for at this point. And yeah, I don't regret. This is what the people, through the electoral system, of course, this is what the people have chosen. And yeah, sorry, I'm not a good person. I'm not the best at making concluding words. So, yeah. So. Again, thank you very much for providing me a chance to hopefully get some of this opinions out there. And for all the other people who will be joining them, just please love yourself and love each other about this. A lot on both ends, these riots, these peaceful, for the people who are thinking that making these violent riots, if they think that's going to make a difference, that's not. That's only going to perpetuate this hostility between the two parties and is going to just simply prove that you guys, that the people who are involved in these extreme riots don't lack the maturity to accept a decision and be rational with dealing with it, that they're just proving all the wrong assumptions that people are making about each other with that, I guess. Mm-hmm. I don't know, So, yep, that's about it. Just stop being violent. This is the best way to go about that. But peace is fine. Burning fires outside of Uber headquarters, that seems completely irrelevant.
Okay.
You're here.
Thank you, Lucky Jack. I appreciate you being here, Logan. It's such short notice. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. Have a great evening.
Take care, buddy.
See you, Logan.
Ray, if you're watching, feel free to jump on. And again, for those of you who have recently joined us, this is an open forum. If you are interested in joining us, please go ahead and send me a private message, a YouTube private message with your email address if you haven't already given me, and I will try to add you into the queue during all of these rotations. Did you have something you wanted to say?
No,
Okay.
I'm just moving around over here.
I'd like to share something, and then I want to give Dylan and Eric a chance to say something. So the way I've been trying to deal with the results is it's a little tricky for me because I've always wanted to be a optimistic person despite a lot of the panic and some of the grief that many people around me are feeling. Because I want to be in a position that is stable and trying to think about the situation as logically and as anchored as possible. But at the same time, I also want to be sensitive towards all the people around me who are dealing with a lot of grief, who have anxiety, who have fear. And, me being positive, at least in a sense, might not be helpful to them. And I'm trying to do both, and it gets really, really hard. Reading the Facebook statuses, which can be very, very draining one way or another, has been very difficult for me. There are people who post things, and I think Andrew mentioned this earlier. Many of my friends post things like, for all of you people who voted for Trump, why do you hate me so much? Why do you hate gays? Why do you hate Black people? Why do you hate Muslims? And as many of us said before, I honestly don't believe that the vast majority, I don't believe that of Trump supporters, went in there to the ballots voting for them because they're thinking, I want to vote for this guy because he hates Black people, or I want to vote for this guy because, he can't stand the gays. I don't believe that. I think that everybody who voted on Tuesday, they have a list of priorities in their heads. Everybody has their list of priorities that determines who they decide to support or who they decided to vote for. And you may disagree at how those priorities are stacked. Some of you are like, the social aspect of a candidate outweighs more than their policies or what they're promising. And for other people, it's flipped. And I think that that's something to take into account and to take into consideration. Matt's shared a link that I'm going to put in. Every single link that we're going to talk about today, I'll try to make sure I put in the description of the YouTube video when it gets posted on my channel. Talking about, it's from Cracked, 6 Reasons Trump's Rise That No One Talks About. And it's a little abrasive because, again, it's from Cracked. But I think it has a very interesting point in that for those of us who live in some of the more liberal areas, especially if you live in the cities, for example, more of the urban areas, we're exposed to more of the diverse crowds of America. A lot of us are more educated. A lot of us are more financially stable. And then when you compare that to the people in the rural areas, there's a disconnect. Like, I think that many of us don't know what that's like. We don't know, what their concerns are. And one of the things that the article touches on is that if you look at a lot of popular fiction, like The Hunger Games, in The Hunger Games, the whole problem, I hear a noise, so if you can make sure that you're muted, that'd be great. In The Hunger Games, the good people are portrayed as the forgotten, rural, farmers and such. And then all of the people in the cities are the evil people, not because they're evil, but because they're out of touch. Like, they don't fully understand what's going on with the rural workers. Same thing with Star Wars. Skywalker's family was a farmer. And it was, the people who are in the cities who were painted as the bad guys. So I'm just saying that both sides really need to really try to put themselves in other people's shoes, because I think the reason why the country is so divided is that the media kind of painted the picture that those of us who are consuming it in some of the liberal areas or non-conservative areas, they thought that everybody in the country, or the vast majority of the country, felt the same way. Like, I think, were disillusioned. I think part of the reason why there was so much shock from the election is there was this disillusionment that way more people in the country felt a certain way, but in the reality, when we see the results of the election, that's not the case. So I think it's important for us as we move forward to understand and ask ourselves the questions: what were the reasons why both sides voted the way they did, and try to fully understand that. Because that is the heart, I think, of getting us to to dissolve the rift, to dissolve the separation that there is between those two sides of the country. So, Dylan, I'm sorry that I spoke for very long. Do you want to put in your 2 cents, please?
Yes, definitely. So yeah, I think so far this week has been a pretty crazy week for everybody, regardless of who you voted for. And I guess I just want to start by saying I'm not like pro a certain party. I'm very open-minded, and I kind of just look at the beliefs that whichever candidate, third party, primary, we'll talk about, and just kind of go with who I guess agree with the most. But in this election, like everyone else has said, both primaries had something that a lot of people really didn't care for both sides, and I mean, me included. But I just feel like we were each given a bullet, and we all had to take the shot. We didn't know what was going to happen. We just had to go for it. So my family is very pronounced in the healthcare industry, myself included, and that was probably that was what I was looking at the most. As for, like you said, we all had our checklists or whatever you want to call it, opinions, and that was mainly my most sought after goal, just because that's the industry, the corporation, if you will, that I work in, and it's so hard in healthcare because you see people abusing the system, and then you see people who are trying to get by doing everything right, and they're just not getting anywhere. And I think that's where I struggle the most with everything going on. At the end of the day, I did vote Trump just because, like I said, I was given a bullet, and I had to take a shot. I didn't know which way to go, but that's just who I ended up going with. I hope that things will get better by the American people and the world coming together, regardless of what side you picked. I feel like at this point, it's not about Trump versus Hillary. It's just about everybody coming together. And someone once told me a long time ago, and I've kind of been going by that ever since, is that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I hope that's true, and I guess only time's going to tell.
Thank you, Dylan. Eric, why don't you go next, and then Ray, I'll have you introduce yourself, and then if you have any opening thoughts, now that you're joining us, you may give some opening thoughts. Go ahead, Eric, please.
Okay. I mean, I don't know where to begin really with kind of like what my mindset was. I would say, I mean,
this has been hard for you, I know, personally. So
oh yeah.
I know this has been hard for you, but
it leaves for like a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen leading up, because again, they control all three branches of the government. Basically, they can get through anything that they would want to, and that leaves a lot of uncertainty for a lot of people. Some of the things that I was trying to get an idea of what it was with all these rights, it basically kind of like the way how Trump promoted himself throughout the whole campaign was really kind of like was basically going after each minority group during the election. And now that he's trying to like bring everything back together, it's kind of like opening a can of worms, that whole thing, trying to put everything back in. There is going to be a lot of hostility coming from that and a reaction from that. And I also feel it's basically giving, like, not all Trump supporters, but there are some that are using it as kind of like a justification to act out on these emotions. But I also realize that this is not just Republicans' fault when coming through this. There's also fault on the Democrats. With Trump, I think the way how he presented himself was kind of that populist person. The person is like, hey, I'm not that government, I'm not the government establishment person. I'm going to try to shake things up. And where then you compare it to someone like Hillary Clinton, she was taking, I wouldn't say she's the worst perpetrator, but when people in like generally the public views her, they see her as kind of like the mayor of that person who is taking the kind of the money of big corporations, of the banks and stuff like that. So it was basically the establishment person versus a populist person in a time when people are getting upset with the establishment. And I think that's what really kind of like was fueling what was going on. It was a big, huge, messy election. This whole thing.
Thank you, Eric. Ray, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Tell us how you want us to refer to you as, where you're from, and then if you have any thoughts you want to share with us now, go ahead.
Let's see. Well, first thing again. I'm Ray. You guys call me Ray. Yeah. I'm from all over. That's just the way I like to say that, instead of, because I never stayed in one place to really consider one my home for a long time. But I reside in the States right now. Was there something else?
Did you want to share anything now that you have the floor?
Right now?
If not, then it's okay. I can continue. If not,
come back to me in a bit. Instead, I don't really have anything quite. See,
okay,
I'm just
that's fine.
No
problem.
Right.
No problem. Right. Whenever you have something you want to say, just let me know in the chat, please. I do have a few people that I do want to bring in on rotation. I think I have like 3 or 4 people in the wings. So if you've been here at the beginning, if you've been here from the beginning, if any of you would like to volunteer to step out at least for the next moment, I would appreciate that, just to open up more seats. Obviously, if you do step out, I would love for you to give your final thoughts on something. Spells where
I have to go to bed soon, so
okay.
I will give my final thoughts and volunteer up my seat. The thing is even while, because I'm off and on looking at the chat on the live stream, and there's a lot of back and forth, and there's a lot of things that are being talked about. And I do want to say that no matter which candidate you thought was the worst, there are some redeemable qualities in there somewhere. Like, I'm looking at a link Logan shared with Trump's first 100 days action plan, and most of them don't seem awful. And the main thing is a lot of this is going to really depend on which lens of history you're going to look through. Because if you're looking at it, like Eric said, through the populist perspective, if you're looking at the United States like Rome or in its past history, JFK was a populist pick, but he never got to do what he needed to do in the system. There's a very good chance that Trump might do some good, but there's also the fear that Hitler was also a populist pick, even though Germany at the time was in a much more desperate situation than we are right now. They did not have much going for them, and that was the alternative. I feel like things will swing back given time. And people often forget, I'm talking about the talks between Russia and things that Vladimir Putin said through the election. And people often forget that it's very hard to maintain peace. Peace is a very tenuous and hard-fought thing, usually held together by a few key individuals. And war is often the standard whenever needs conflict. So all we can do is hope that the world doesn't destabilize further. And I personally believe that Hillary may have been the worst for our international relations, even though she might have been better internally for like American interests. And the note I kind of want to end on is no one wakes up in the morning saying that I want to hate on as many people I don't agree with as possible. They wake up saying, you know, I want a good life for me and the people that are close to me. So very, very, very few people are hateful, spiteful bigots that a lot of people think to claim that the other side is. So that's about all.
I think that's a very good point. Thank you so much for bringing that up, Spells, and thanks for joining us today.
Take care, Spells.
Thank you so much, Spells.
See ya, guys. Bye.
Reclusiarch David, if you're watching, feel free to join us. Mint, I got a message from Mint. If you're watching, Mint, could you please send me another private message with your email address so that I can send you an invite? So hopefully, Mint, you get this message. I know Joe has been very patiently wanting to say something. So let me let Joe say something. And then Mike, I think, wanted to say something. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. Well, first, let me give a little background about me. I'm living in Seattle now, which is a very progressive city, obviously, but I grew up in Mississippi, a town with only like maybe 2 stoplights. So I grew up in the conservative, you know, thought, and back then I wasn't very educated. I did not want to talk about politics at all because people who don't really know about politics don't want to talk about politics because they don't know what they're talking about. So one of the things that led to Trump is, well, our education system. Most of Trump supporters were in the polls, and this is what polls say, it's not, you know, what I say, most of them were white, uneducated males who voted mostly for Trump, and if you were more educated, you were less likely to vote for him. Our education system, also our media failed us as well. CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, all those big corporate media, they basically gave Trump like millions of dollars of free airtime of scandals and personalities. Did not hardly talk about policy. I am a huge Bernie Sanders supporter and fan, and all he talked about was policies. Even if you asked him a question about his personality, he brought it back to policies. He was awesome. And that's what it feels like. It's what corporate media tries to do is a personality instead of policies, and they don't really bring up their policies. So I think our education has failed us. Our media has failed us. And I'm honestly going to say I think Hillary has failed us because what she did, first off, what the DMC did, and then Debbie Wasserman Schultz was for her. They were not neutral, like they said. Everybody kind of knew that, but after the primary, it's like, haha, we found out, oh, you weren't neutral. We kind of all knew that. Anyway, the point being is, but after she won the primaries and she defeated Bernie Sanders, she didn't stick with her base. She's like, okay, well, I got the liberal vote. The liberals are, you know, automatically going to vote for me, and I'm not speaking. And she thinks the millennials are going to go for it. And I do not speak for every millennial, of course, but most of millennials saw that, and she immediately, after she won the primary, she went right. She was more conservative. She totally went more conservative. Showed her other side. Some people call her two-faced. Well, she went to her other side. She was trying to actually grab Republican votes, and you know, she's like, well, screw the millennials and liberals because, you know, I won the primaries, so who cares? They assume automatically going to vote for Hillary, and obviously that didn't happen. So our education system has failed us. The media has failed us, and we have corporate Republicans and corporate Democrats going against populist Republicans and populist Democrats. Well, a populist, when it comes to Trump, a fake populist Republican, because I know he says this, he says that, but you don't know what he says, because he says this thing and you have a quote that he said the exact opposite. You see things, either memes or something, where he says the exact opposite. So he's just saying anything he wants to say to get elected president. He's got elected president. So because he spoke both sides, oh, I'll do this for you, I'll do this for you, we don't know what he's actually going to do, and that's scary. And then the fact that we don't know what he's going to do, and the Senate is majority Republican, the House Republican, and he's going to have Supreme Court justice probably that's also going to be very conservative. It's very scary, and I'm actually scared for people's rights, and I'm very worried. It's just
I know. There's a lot of things in your head. I know.
Yeah.
For those of you in the panel, just so you know, I do have 3 or 4 people that are interested in joining us. So I would like to ask some of you to bow out. If I could, Joe, if you're able to bow. I know, Mike, you gave your final thoughts. I'm assuming, Joe, was there anything else before we say goodbye to you? Okay.
Wait, before you go, question. A place called Picayune, Mississippi.
I'm sorry? Go ahead.
What?
What was the question?
Yes.
I said, do you know a place called Picayune? You do?
Yes.
I lived there for a year. It was terrible. I lived there for a year. They all told me I talked funny.
Yeah. I grew up around Meridian, Mississippi, a small town around there. And most of my family voted for Trump, and it's kind of very disheartening to, but I also have to think about it. They're not educated, and if you try to educate them, they get angry. It's not when you try to educate people, especially when it comes to politics. It goes waysides, and as much as I tried to educate my family and friends who were who was in Mississippi, it fell on deaf ears. So it was very tough living in rural Mississippi, and which is one reason. And there was no jobs there, so that's one of the many reasons I had to get out, and I moved to Seattle, across the country.
Well, thank you again for sharing all of that, Joe. And it's a pleasure to meet you in person, kind of, sort of, for the first time, Joe.
Thank you.
Many loves to you.
Thank you.
All right. Hopefully, we'll be able to hang out again some other time. So, Mint, if you're watching, if you're watching, feel free to log in and take Joe's place. I think Mike is bowing out, and I'm gonna arbitrarily pick Mark. I know that you wanted to say something, so I'll let you give your piece, because I do want to make a little bit more room. So if Mike and Mark can peace out after this, and then I will have David introduce himself, and then I know Matt's been dying to say something, so we'll get to Matt too. Go ahead, Mike.
Okay. I would just like to reiterate that you cannot underestimate the Republican mandate. They have the majority, and they can do stuff with that. Like immigration, which the Republicans have been trying to push for a while, which has often ranged from securing the border to deporting a lot of people, which would cause a lot of harassment on the side of Latinos. It basically I can't reiterate, don't underestimate the Republican mandate. They're upcoming to a Supreme Supreme Court nominee. They have Trump, and they have the House and the Senate. So there's a lot they can do. Not saying they will do, but I know a lot will want to. And I did vote Hillary. It was a vote against Trump. Though an interesting point is that it didn't matter because I was in the reddest state, the reddest county in Virginia. Trump won my county, which my mother voted for. But then Hillary won Virginia, which means both our votes got thrown out and didn't matter. The point I'm trying to make is there is a lot that happened at the election. There is a lot that happened leading up to Trump. Not one person can be blamed for it. So just everyone keep that in mind. Be tolerant. If they voted for Trump, it wasn't just them that gave Trump the presidency. That's all I have to say.
Well, again, Mike, thank you very much for your views as well and for joining us from the beginning of this. I appreciate you hanging out with us.
The Shogun says farewell.
Shogun says farewell. Again, Mint, if you're watching, and Edgar, if you're watching, please join in. The seat is open for you. So we're going to go to Mark, and then once we go to Mark, I'll do the introduction train, and then get to Matt eventually. Go ahead, Mark.
All right.
Give your final thoughts.
My final thoughts. Personally, long story short, I thought it was rigged, but overall, I am very fearful about Trump. I have full-blown anxiety, to be honest, and I'm also worried about what he's going to do with the LGBT community because, for one thing, I have a cousin who is gay, and I completely support him all the way. And I'm just fearing that Trump may do some things that may fight with me. So for my final thoughts is I thought it was rigged, and Trump, don't please. That's it.
Okay. Mark, thank you again for hanging out with us.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll hang out again soon,
All right.
buddy, all right?
All right.
Okay.
Peace
Talk
out.
to you later. All right. I'm going to be sending an invite to Evan very soon, really quickly, Evan. So just sit tight and check your inbox. We had a couple people who just joined us. So I do want them to introduce themselves. And if you have some thoughts you want to share, I want to give you the opportunity to do so if there's something you wanted to share right off the bat. Otherwise, just pass it on. And once you have something you want to say, just let me know. David, why don't we start with you? Tell us where you're from, David. And if you have anything you want to share right off the bat, please do.
Sure. So I'm David. I'm actually from Sweden. So I'm not really involved in this election. So I can give you the Swedish perspective on this whole thing. Say that. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate everyone for being so nice and calm and being able to discuss this in a professional manner. Personally, I had some very outspoken views about Mr. Trump and the whole of Sweden. When we have our right-wing extremists here in Sweden, racists, bad people in general, and the head guy of that party, he said that Trump was too extremist. And that is saying a lot. So all of Sweden is kind of shocked that we thought this was a joke, basically. We couldn't understand how he got as far as he did. And suddenly he wins, and we're like, what just happened? There are several issues I'd like to talk about, but if you want, we can wait until the introductions are finished. You can come back to me if you want.
Okay, fair enough. Also, always a pleasure to see you here, David.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Mint, or however you want us to refer to you as, could you please introduce yourself by however you want us to address you and where you're from? And if you have any opening personal thoughts that you want to share, please do.
Can you hear me all right?
A little bit. So if you could just try to speak up a little bit.
Raise up your
little,
gain.
It's a bit soft. Just yours.
Ra-
Just speak up.
Raise up your gain.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm Mint or Lexi.
Mm-hmm.
Either one is fine, to be honest. I'm from northern Illinois. Sorry, I had what I wanted to say queued up in my mind, and I'm here now, and mine's kind of gone blank. This is actually kind of a scary time for me, being that I am, part of the LGBT community, and I'm only 15, so I don't really know what this will, mean for me, especially considering my school is fairly conservative. But I think my biggest fear is less with and more with the people who just don't care because it doesn't affect them. So, why should they care how minority groups are affected when they're not part of them? Like my grandmother today, anyone who's in the chat already heard this story, but she I was really upset and I was crying, and my grandma told me to kind of just get over it because it's only 4 years with a guy we never really liked. And I don't think she really got, for me, it wasn't just, oh, I didn't like him. It's oh, this could mean this could be dangerous for me.
Yeah. Sorry, I just wanted to mention that before I continue on is that I think one thing for me personally that I struggle with this whole thing is that, again, I try to be very mindful of the other side of the coin, and I try to understand where people are coming from and understand their points of views when we don't agree. And it's one thing when, you disagree with something like, for example, gay marriage. When you disagree with something but it doesn't directly affect you, it doesn't directly hurt you per se, if that's a thing, versus something that can hurt you or can actually put you in danger. That's where the line where I draw. And that's why, I'm very worrisome when I'm seeing these Twitter posts about, day one of Trump's presidency with the hate crimes that, are happening. People, like you said, with Muslims being attacked, having their headwear ripped off. Muslims who are afraid, who normally, are dressed in their religious clothing, are too afraid to wear them the day after the election. All of the writing that we've seen about, anti-blacks, Black lives don't matter, and be ready to be deported. That's where I feel like there's a difference between that and not wanting there to be gay marriage, if that makes sense. So this is why I think for those of you who are on the Trump supporting side, understand that for many people's reality, there's an article that I read said that, and this isn't directed to anyone on the channel or anyone that's in the panel, that if you are a straight white man, stop saying it's going to be okay, because depending on who you're talking to, for you as a straight white man, you're probably going to be okay. Things will probably be okay with you. But if you're saying that to somebody who is not a straight white man, you can't necessarily guarantee. We're going to hope, like David said, we're going to hope that nothing is going to happen to people and that they will be okay. But there's already cases since day one after the election where that unfortunately hasn't been the case. And I want to stay positive. I want to remain hopeful. But at the same time, I don't want to ignore that there already are people for whom it's not okay right now. And it might not be okay for a while if we don't make the right choices moving forward. Sorry about that. I do want to move on and have Dark Striker introduce himself. Give us,
please, just call me Edgar.
Edgar, let us know, give us your name. Well, if you want to refer to you something other than Edgar, where you're from, and if you have any opening thoughts. And then Evan, I will let you do the same thing. And then after Evan, we'll move on to Matt because this is a topic that I know Matt wants to get to. So go ahead, Edgar.
Okay, so is my gain levels correct? I want this to be actually audible and, you know, just not really quiet. Is it good? It's all right.
It's good. It's
so
good.
I can hear you great, man. Yeah.
Okay, I was just testing. So basically, where I come from, I'm in the Panhandle, Texas, and essentially in the Panhandle, Texas, we've had a lot of immigrants come in, and this isn't to say they're bad. I actually like immigrants. In fact, my family's immigrants. So, I guess so. Okay, I know, bad start. Okay, but essentially, we have many cultures here. We have Burmese, we have Nigerians, we have Mexicans, we have whites, and now, for whatever reason, there's, I think there's Irish coming in? I'm not too sure. There's also some Germans coming in, too. But essentially, we're just like a really big mixing pot of cultures and beliefs. You know, like every other street, there's like a church. There's like a Mormon church on 3rd Street. There's a mosque in 5th Street, you know, and a Baptist church in 1st Street. You know, it's just a big melting pot for conservative Texas. So, essentially, what I've been seeing with Trump supporters is, well, generally the polls are semi-correct. Most of them tend to be non-college educated ones. Now, what does this mean for someone who's not college educated? You know, most of the jobs are going away overseas, and many people are, you know, saying things negative towards Republicans. You know, it's just like, who cares for the poor, ignorant white person? Nobody cares for the poor, ignorant white person, or at least claims to do so. In here, in the Panhandle, Texas, it's believed that the Republicans only care for them because, frankly, you know, who's going to stand up for the poor middle-class man? You know, nobody is. So that's personally why I think Trump support's really high amongst, you know, conservative states, because, you know, poor white people, who's going to support them? Who's going to rally their cause? You know, you'll get someone of color, and yes, this has happened. I go to community college, and I've had a person of color, if you will, in the philosophy class say that white people shouldn't be able to defend themselves because this land was bred upon white domination, and since there's inherent white domination, you know, their opinion shouldn't matter because it's gonna inherently be there. Now, I think this is a very bigoted viewpoint, but you know, I can see it. It's just like, you know, who's gonna stand up for the white man? And you know, and that sounds very, very odd, but that's just the viewpoint here. I personally voted Bernie Sanders during the Democratic primary. He didn't get it, so I was a little sad by that, but frankly, I think the reason why Trump won was because of multiple things. It was just multiple things leading up to it. And then it finally escalated to the final climax. For one, I think it all started when the media just started harping on Trump. You know, it's like this big, larger-than-life celebrity's running for president. Let's just look at him and see all the wacky shenanigans he does. You know, and he gets more coverage for free.
Mm-hmm.
He gets more coverage for free, and essentially, all the attention's on him. He has the spotlight, and he's this mega celebrity. He knows how to operate the spotlight. He knows how to keep it on him. And look at the other people that are on there on the Republican ballot. There was Jeb Bush, and people don't like the Bushes. They didn't like his dad or his brother. People didn't know about Ben Carson. They just know him from that one movie and thought he made a very good white noise maker. And then you got Mark Rubio. Nobody knows who he is. And then you got the other guy who became a meme and was, claimed to be the Zodiac killer. When you're going against that, and Trump has a spotlight, it's going to be inherent. Trump's going to probably win the Republican primary. Okay, so now once Trump has a primary, okay, what do I mean? What do you mean by that?
No, I was talking to Natalie. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Edgar.
Okay.
Try to wrap things up a little bit for us, Edgar, please.
Okay.
Finish up your thoughts.
I know. I'm sorry. So basically, the odds are essentially stacked against Trump, and a lot of celebrities are taking the pro-Democrat side, For example, John DiMaggio, Greta Isle, a bunch of voice actors, a bunch of celebrities. I mean, you got a few celebrities for Trump, like Clint Eastwood and such, but essentially, on the celebrity spectrum, people are just, it's stacked against him. People are supporting, Hillary Clinton, and everyone's saying Donald Trump's a bigot, a racist, and that he's just going to lead this nation to downturn. Now, this is where the poor white man part comes back in, because, they're seeing these celebrities that make millions a year supporting Hillary Clinton and saying that Trump's just this ignorant, poor excuse of a candidate. And it just boils down to just, the working class. Donald Trump tapped into the working class's emotions, because that's what Bernie Sanders did, and that's why, he was slated to beat Donald Trump if on the poll-to-poll basis, because Bernie just tapped into the working class. But since it was Hillary and Donald managed to tap into the working class better than Hillary could, because frankly, Hillary just disenfranchised a lot of people. There was a lot of people within her campaign that said they didn't even need the Bernie votes. In fact, I have a tweet here. Let me see.
Edgar,
basically, someone... Sorry.
Sorry, go ahead. I was going to say, Edgar, can I... Yeah, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to get on to more people's... Okay. Let me... While you're looking for that Twitter link, I do want to get to introducing Evan, and then Natalie said she wanted to say something real quick, and then we'll get to Matt. Go ahead, Evan, and if there's anything specifically you want to say, Evan, go right ahead. The floor is yours.
Sure. So, as Hark said, I'm Evan. I guess I can say I'm from Madison, Wisconsin. So if you're a Clinton supporter, I apologize that our state let you down. One thing that I will mention is sort of a little bit related to something that Hark said before, which is, like, if you're a straight white guy, then don't necessarily just say, hey, everything will be okay. And my brain has, among other reactions, been sort of flipping back and forth between, like, well, okay, so, I mean, the Republicans have all three, both houses of Congress and the presidency, but this has happened plenty of times before. Like, we'll get through it. But then I also think, like, for example, I have a friend who is like a climatologist at a national lab, and now we have President Trump saying global warming is a hoax invented by the Chinese, and that he wants to close the Department of Energy. And so I think about, like, well, okay, how will that affect her? And there are other things as well. So my brain is sort of flipping back and forth between, I disagree, but this has happened before, we'll get through it, and this could wind up being really, really, really bad with basically nothing in between. So it's sort of a little bit of a strange feeling for me.
Thank you.
That's about it.
Thank you, Evan. Natalie, you wanted to say something really quickly? Go ahead.
I say it's not really quick. I don't know. But
no, it's fine. You haven't spoken in a while. Please go ahead.
Okay. So Mint, so you said how like how you were crying and with how your grandmother was telling you just to, shake it off. But when I found out that Trump won, it was kind of like the 5 stages of grief, but except it just went to denial, anger, and then straight to depression. Because first I denied it, then I was angry, and in my 3rd period class, which was my language arts class, my teacher decided that we wanted to take it easy for the day, considering everything that just happened with the election. And so there was a group of us, and we talked about our feelings on the election, kind of like how we're talking right now. And I cried as well, because, Trump's going to be president for 4 years. And in 4 years, I would be 17 years old. And if he gets reelected, then well, I'd be like 21. And
Natalie, what is it? What are you concerned mostly of? Like what are you afraid of then, or anxious about?
Honestly, my fears about Trump are kind of really personal, and I'm thinking about whether or not I should share that. But just the no gay marriage thing. It's like, what if, while Trump is president and he gets elected 2 times, what if I end up falling in love with another person who is female, and we end up wanting to get married, but we can't? And
Natalie, is it okay if Ray responds to you right now? Go ahead, Ray. Go ahead, Ray.
It was ruled constitutional, so they can't repeal it. They can put blocks on it, but you can work around it. A lot of times already beforehand, there were workarounds for it when it was only legalized in certain states. So the worst that could happen is they could try to block you in your state, but then you can go to a different state still, and it would be constitutionally enforced. They can't roll back constitutional rulings. I just thought that might be something good to know.
Oh, okay, thank you, because honestly, I don't really know all that much about politics.
No problem. That's perfectly understandable, and the reasons why you're anxious is, I think, perfectly valid. I also, want to just say that I believe that if the sorry, I'm gonna have to mute a few people. Please, just because I have some feedback. I believe that if the Trump administration is smart, I know that we have, what he plans on doing for the first 100 days of his presidency. If the Trump administration is smart, I think they're going to start by working on the issues that are the common ground issues that I think both sides, both partisans, agree with, because they need to establish trust, right? They need to establish trust, not only with the Democrats, but also the Republican Party. So hopefully, they won't be touching, if ever, they won't be touching anything with LGBT related things like the right for gays to get married on a federal level. Because I think they would be shooting themselves in the foot if they even tried to do that, sooner than later. And even if they were to, try to mess with that, I don't know if they believe that would be really worth it, because I feel like if even if they were to change such a thing, I mean, the next time the election comes around, I'm thinking that it'll probably get overturned again or reversed again in the next election. It seems like there's no point at this time. there's no point at this point. It just would be a waste of their time, in my opinion. And I feel like they have bigger fish to fry. So those are just my personal feelings on that. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Did you want to say something real quick, Natalie? Or are you good? We'll let you think about it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say something.
Go ahead.
This is just for like me on a personal level, as to why I'm a bit fearful for Trump. And so you know how Trump is going to a trial, I believe, next month for rape of a minor.
I believe that actually got dropped because the plaintiff has been receiving so many death threats that she's dropped the case.
Wow.
Oh.
I guess not then.
I believe there still is the corruption trial scheduled for December, but
yes, that one is still scheduled. Yeah. The rape case one, that one was dropped.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if that's entirely the reason, but it sounds probable.
Natalie,
that's the one that I've heard reported. I haven't checked it.
If I'm trying to jump ahead, Natalie, are you concerned that if Trump gets impeached, if hypothetically Trump gets impeached, are you worried more about Pence and what Pence would be doing if he succeeded Trump? Is that, or I'm just wondering where you're going. Do you want to gather your thoughts?
And the reason why I'm concerned about it is because one of my family members, not like anyone in my main family, like my mom or dad or brother or anything like that, but they went to prison because they raped someone, and I used to care a lot for that person, but now it's just kind of like I feel nothing for them, and it's just kind of that personal fear of, like, I had a family member who did something horrible, and now our soon-to-be president has has a case on sexual assault. And there have been a lot of other women who have reported sexual assault.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose only at this point is pray to God he has not done any of that, because that is just horrible. Just even the victims, from the victim's perspective, that would just be horrible. And frankly, like, there's been many cases been against Bill Clinton as well. It's just like, that's just not a nice thing to hear. Like, oh my God, my leader has done that stuff.
Yeah, and having it affect you in such a way, especially with your age, or it's horrible no matter what age you are. So no matter what age you are, that's not a cool thing to have to experience and have to go through. So again, like, Natalie, thank you so much for sharing so much when you didn't have to. That was very powerful. You're very brave. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did somebody want to say something real quick? Because I did want to get to Matt finally. Can we get to Matt? Go ahead.
I was just going to finish off my point. So, okay, basically, I think the biggest elephant in the room people aren't talking about is the fact that Trump turned Pennsylvania. That has never happened since, like, the 80s when Reagan was running. And that's just making me wonder, like, how did that happen? Trump's winning states that have never turned colors, and he wasn't even slated to win at all. But he won them. I think that's the biggest elephant in the room. And I think just saying that Trump supporters and, all them, they're a hypocrite, racist, misogynistic bunch, I think that's just overgeneralizing, because, I mean, is over half of the population of Pennsylvania bigots? I highly doubt that, honestly, because, you know, it's Pennsylvania. It's always had Democratic appeals, but for whatever reason, this election had it turned over. I think the biggest concern for the people was they just didn't trust Hillary, I think. I mean, even if you love Hillary, just the fact that states that were blue were overturned, that should at least say something.
Yeah.
Because, you know, like, disenfranchising the Bernie group, you know, just flat out saying the Trump supporters are all bigots, racist, misogynists, you know, they're just degenerates, you know, lump them all together, just toss them away, we don't need them. And it's just like, that alienates people, and from a political standpoint, that's not a very good thing to do. I mean, I guess that's the only reason why Trump honestly won, because there was just so much alienation and just ambivalence towards the other people, you know? Because, I mean, I'm pretty sure there's people on the fence, but just calling a whole group of people degenerates and, you know, disenfranchising another voting bloc, that just sounds like a recipe for failure, honestly.
Thank you, Edgar. I'm sorry. I do want to continue on a bit. I do have a couple people that want to jump on shortly.
That's why I was going to sign off.
Oh, you're going to sign off?
Yeah,
okay.
That was my closing statement. You know, it's just like,
okay.
I think that's why the biggest reason Trump was the victor, even though he lost the popular vote. You know, because he won places where it just seemed ambivalent toward other people. You know. And I guess he honestly made them think that he cared about them because, you know, he tapped into the white collar vote, you know? That's a very powerful vote to have under your belts. And the fact that he tapped it in and the other one didn't, I guess that just speaks for itself, you know? But I mean, whatever. I voted Jill Stein in my red county, Texas. You know, just screw it all. I hope Trump is a good president because he's the leader of our nation, whether we like it or not. And if we have a bad leader of the nation, well, I don't think that'd be pretty for anyone. So let's just hope he does good for our sake.
I think we all are hoping that he will end up, you know, stepping up and, you know, being able to have the separation between what he was before Trump, prior to president, and then President Trump.
Yeah, and actually I hope he I hope he matures because, you know, because the vice president, that's the one that's really more anti-gay because, you know, he's the guy that's like, we can have conversion camps and just that big spiel, you know. At least Trump now, after the nomination, said we will do whatever we can to support the LGBTQ community, you know. At least he stepped up to that, you know. And it's just like, I kind of hope Pence doesn't get it because he does seem more bigoted, you know.
Yeah.
But I thank you all for talking and tolerating my blabbing.
Thank you, Edgar.
Enjoy your podcast. I have to go drive to Tennessee overnight.
Yeah, be safe. Please be safe.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Cool.
Have a nice trip.
Have a nice trip. Sean, if you're watching, there is still a seat for you. If you don't grab it in the near future, I will have to send your seat to somebody else. So if you want to jump on now, Sean, now is your time. Matt, thank you for your patience. We'll get to Matt.
That's okay.
And then I think Ray wanted to say something, and then I think Evan wanted to say something. So go ahead, Matt.
I guess I just wanted to chat about the whole everyone. What I've been seeing a lot is everyone going down with the electoral system. The electoral system's horrible, and a lot of people on the panel so far have talked about the whole my vote didn't count on some level because my candidate didn't get past the post. And I know we've been mentioning privately about first past the post voting systems, which is what America does currently have, and I think the UK currently has it as well. Which has caused some issues over there. And one of the interesting options that no one I've seen in America is really talking about is the idea of preferential voting, which is where you say, well, I vote for this, I vote for all the candidates ranked from 1 to however many, and if my first choice doesn't get in, my vote goes to my second choice, and so far down until you come to the last 2 candidates standing. It's the process that we use in Australia, and we also couple that with mandatory voting, so everyone has to vote. And the interesting thing about forcing everyone to vote is that it then forces the government to ensure that everyone is able to vote, which I think would tackle a huge amount of the issues that we're seeing in the US in terms of laws preventing people from voting, voters not being able to vote for whatever reason, and governments actively, in some cases, working against voters. It's often accused of being trying to prevent voting in specific demographic blocks. So while this may be pie in the sky thinking, I really wanted to just bring that up and toss that out to the panel to see what you guys all thought about that.
Do any of you guys have anything you want to respond to or add to that?
I just have a very brief thing.
I meant relating to what Matt just said, relating to Matt's topic. You do, Evan?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Evan,
which is
go ahead. And Natalie after Evan, and then was somebody else after Natalie? Anyone else? Okay, go ahead, Evan, and then Natalie.
Maine. Yeah, I don't know details about what exactly they're going to be doing with this, but there was a Maine referendum on Tuesday that passed that allows ranked voting in Maine. And I don't know if they're turning that into instant runoff or what. I don't know if it's for just Maine offices or if it's for federal offices. I think it is for federal offices as well. I suspect it's instant runoff based, but that will be coming down the pipe.
Oh, Kimberly in the chat saying that yes, they just did. So that sounds very exciting.
Thank you, Kimberly. Natalie, do you want to respond to what Matt was saying? What's talking about?
So about what you're saying about the being forced to vote.
In Australia, everyone has to vote. It's a legal
I know,
requirement.
but
Yeah.
I know, but actually, it just reminded me. In social studies, we had a class project, and it was about, and we were supposed to write a paragraph about our opinion. Like, should here in America, should we be forced to vote or to have be able to not vote? And what I went ahead and wrote was, I think we should be able to not vote if we choose, because we say we have the right to vote. Well, what's the right to vote if you don't have to have the right to not vote? This is just something that I had a class project on, so I just kind of wanted to share it.
Yeah. Thank you, Natalie.
I guess over here we still can do a donkey vote, which is what we call it when you draw a dinosaur on the page, or usually a penis. For some reason, penis is very popular to draw on your ballot paper. There was actually a tweet to our Electoral Commission going, so if we draw a big dick on our paper, is it still a valid vote? And they tweeted back saying, as long as you number all the boxes, yes, it is. So that was kind of fun. But no, you can still choose to hand in a blank ballot or not vote if that's what you want to do. But legally, everyone is required to show up on voting day and cast a ballot or vote early through a postal vote or something similar. And what we've found here is that it does force more people to become politically aware and politically engaged. And it does mean, because we have coupled that with a preferential voting system, that all your third-party candidates are suddenly viable. And by voting for a third-party candidate, and because this is tracked and people don't know that you specifically voted for it, but they know that, for example, 30% of the population put the Greens first. They didn't get in, but they came first. So suddenly all the other parties are going, well, a lot of the Green policies, people like them, so maybe we have to engage with those particular policies. So it prevents you getting a two-party system where only two parties' views are discussed. We still primarily have a two-party system, which is slowly breaking down, but it just means that you get more voices and ideas being heard at the federal level.
Thank you.
Evan, and then Ray, and then Eric, do you have something to respond to Matt's topic? Okay. Evan, then Ray, then Eric. Go ahead, Evan.
I just have a quick apparent correction to what I said before. In the chat, Kimberly says that the main ranked voting is state only, not federal.
Okay. One step at a time. One step at a time.
Ray, go ahead and respond, please.
I honestly can't even remember what I was going to say exactly. it might come back later when I get back to when I was actually going to go a little bit on. So I guess I'll come up.
Yeah, just raise your hand.
Yeah.
Eric, go ahead and respond to Matt's topic.
Okay. Yeah, on the topic of the numbered voting system, there's actually a YouTube channel, CGP Gray, who actually talks about the whole process. And during that thing, it also helps prevent the spoiler effect voting, where you can have basically 3 candidates. One candidate is very similar to another candidate, and is basically taking votes from that candidate away, and then it just results in the other person getting the votes. Whereas under that policy, people who would have voted for that third option, those votes then get transported over to that person, and it actually reflects what the majority thinks. Again, I posted the link and this thing right here.
Really quickly, does anyone have anything that they want to add to Matt's topic before I move on?
Yeah, I think
ahead,
that just having that system in place where everyone is mandatorily required to vote would do wonders for this country in general, just because, like you said, it would get everybody more involved, which would keep everybody, I guess, on their A game, if that makes sense.
Cool. Okay, just going down the line. Evan had something, and then Ray, if you have something, we can go with you, and then after Ray, David. Go ahead, Evan.
This is going way back in terms of topics. Is that all right? So going back to, I think it was Natalie that was worried about what might happen to gay marriage. So of course, nothing's for certain, but I can also give a couple comforting words about that, which is that the Oberfeld decision, which is what the Supreme Court's decision that it would be legal countrywide, I think that being overturned is very, very remote. So first of all, remember that at least for the first court position that Trump is picking, he's replacing Scalia, who dissented from Oberfell anyway. And so that decision wouldn't even change. And even if he gets another one, then it would be, the Supreme Court values precedent a lot, and it would be probably unprecedented for them to even rehear the case, let alone change, overturn it. And then you also have to keep in mind that even though they're court justices and not completely subject to public opinion, Gallup polls have for a couple years now shown majority support in the country for gay marriage rights. So I, in terms of, like I said, nothing's for certain, but in terms of things that I would worry about outcomes from the elections, from a strictly legal perspective, an overruling of gay marriage, I think, is way, way down on the list.
I agree with that too. Let's, since Ray's did you want to respond to that specifically, Matt?
Yes, I did actually, because one of the things that I've had to, I was reading recently, I'm still not sure why I did, but I went and read the GOP 2016 party platform, and they specifically state they want to remove all federal involvement with the Marriage Act, and they want to roll that back to the states specifically, which puts the US back where it was in terms of gay marriage. At least at the federal level, it removes federal support if they do it. They've also stated, I think the gay conversion therapy, which has come up a few times, at least in the chat, has been mentioned as the right for parents to choose what therapies their children undergo. It was watered down to that statement. And there was also some very specific statements about education and removing the meddling of federal law in terms of activities that happened in schools, which was specifically targeting the recent support for transgender individuals to use the bathroom of their choice. So they're in the GOP platform. Whether or not they can implement it is obviously a question that has to be raised through your government system. I'm not really sure on that, but it is something that they are saying that they want to do.
Ray, did you have anything you wanted to say before I move on to David?
Yes. And say now is that I apologize if I start rambling. I'm just trying to gather the thoughts I've been building up. So I haven't been here from the beginning of watching this, and so then I've been busy, and so that I was listening in the background when I finally did see the message and such. So forgive me if I touch on anything that's been said that I don't even remember from what I have been here for.
Go ahead.
Looking back on all this and so then actually saying something now and such, it's process, and it's been really. I think that's part of the reason I really wanted to join this is to hear a lot of different people's opinions and thoughts on everything that has happened here. And as everyone likes to touch on in this chat and stuff like that, it's been good for those that civilly, safely as well, that you not have to worry about being attacked, because during this whole thing, I've seen with several groups of my different friends in different chats like Discord and everything that yelling at each other, tearing each other apart. And these are people that are on the same, otherwise would have said, you should have opted for Hillary, and so that being the biggest chance to take him down and such. From all the answer there, this has been kind of scary to see for that, because it's been internally some of my friend groups apart, and I'm saying at this point we just need to stay together no matter what that point is. And I know it's scary right now because this personally affects a lot of us in toxic, painful, and scary ways. I know personally the things I'm worried about. I mean, I've already before Trump presidency been threatened with deportation, and I'm from the United States and stuff like that. I'm just a former immigrant to the UK. I live here. I was born here first, and people try to threaten to deport me. People was like, "What?" And I look to a lot of people Muslim and some people Puerto Rican and such, and yeah, it makes there's a lot of things for me to worry about and stuff. And there's things that affect me personally, so that from the not being taken away, I have blind. And I've been struggling with a lot of things to get health insurance, and I was in Missouri for a bit, but we couldn't get health insurance because it didn't expand it out there. But we moved to another state where we could get access to this, and it's been helping a lot to get things going for me and get the medications and my fiance, and we have plans for things that happen and such. All of these things that could be taken away, and I realize how many can affect different people. And I look. Just taken away from me just when I'm starting to get things stable, to handle how these things could come back. And so personally, but then it's not even the scariest part there. What?
So Ray, just to clarify, you said that you're currently benefiting from Obamacare. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I was able, since I moved out here, so that I'm able to get that, and it's made a world of difference for me and my fiance.
Are you concerned?
When we're starting to get somewhere stable in life and such, this was a point where all that can be taken away from me. And I understand a lot of people were worried for that, and they will have the reasons that aren't sexism and any form of bigotry. But it always shocked me and such. And I'm an independent, actually. But it still confuses me and so that. And I'm pride myself not being particularly partisan, also and so that. But it just. Because of my personal feelings, it's always been so hard for me to fathom why people could ignore all these things that they disagree with and try to ignore that and stuff like that for these things when it directly hurts people that they know and care about and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that people would argue about against Hillary and stuff like that, they're not trusting to it. None of the policies really hurt anybody in a personal way. And any decision they could make can be repealed later on. They don't personally hurt people and such. And I really try to, and I find it really important that I try to understand that, but it's so scary to try to understand those people sometimes, that some of the standpoints when they believe and think that, listen, I want to try to understand you, but no, this person affects me, so can we try to do about it? And I'm afraid that they're going to lash out at me so that because biased because it affects me. But that's exactly why I want to try to understand it. I really believe that it's one of my personal philosophies, and to quote a fictional character, is it's important to draw wisdom from different places, and if you take it only from one place, it becomes rigid and stale.
Right.
Which is kind of what I was just about to say. I think the best thing right now is for communities like this, for who have different, views or aspects, all to come together and just try to help each other out, regardless of where you come from or where you're going to.
Yeah.
That's probably the best thing that we have going right now, honestly.
I think Ray, thank you for reiterating, what I was saying earlier is that, understand each other's point of views and be aware that if you disagree with someone, be aware of the issues that you disagree on that does or does not directly affect you and does or does not directly affect other people to the point of them actually being hurt or being put in danger or being put in a very, very compromising position that no human being should be put in. There's a difference between those kind of issues that you disagree with, the things that actually affects people in that way. I know that David wants to say something, so go ahead, David.
All right. Okay. Good.
Thank you for your patience.
No, it's totally okay. It's a fair warning. This might get a little bit heated.
Okay.
But
brace yourselves, everybody. David's about to speak.
I'm looking from the outside and looking in, and this is it's just so foreign for me, for a world leader to have these anti-global warming views, anti-abortion, anti-gay views. It just seems so barbaric. I mean, welcome back to the 1950s, and everyone here in Sweden, 90% feel the same way. We're looking in and we're wondering what's going on. And is this okay? Is this a thing for Americans that it's okay to vote for people who are anti-abortion, anti-gay, anti-global warming if there's other things that you support with that candidate? Because these are some serious issues that are just like, oh, global warming. Okay. So the rest of us have to pick up the freaking pieces of this mess of a election. And if people wake up with fear because they don't know how their future is going to be, something is seriously wrong. And these are basic human rights. He's like, and we like talking, oh, okay, it's all right, maybe it's going to get better. How does this happen? And we have touched on that, how this happened. Of course, we can't point at one person how this has happened, but it just, again, foreign concept, and I think this ignorance is so dangerous. And he's appointing people who support these concepts. And maybe it's just for 4 years, maybe it's 8 years, but just about the scientific downgrade. I mean, you guys used to be at the top of that, and now this, you're gonna isolate yourself, not looking at frontiers, and just like build. It's so upsetting looking at this and seeing how you slowly tear yourself apart from the European standpoint, like looking at you guys. And I just hope that it. Okay, maybe I'm overreacting, but I hope this is something good that Trump is doing, but we just can't see it because of all of these things. Because if there's one party in Sweden that was anti-abortion or anti-gay, they would be gone, and they wouldn't have a chance. It just blows my mind that people are talking about this like it's a normal thing. Okay, I'm done.
Yeah, I think I'm really loving that we're getting an international perspective on this. So thank you for giving us insight from Sweden, David. given the international run, Matt wanted to chime in too from the land down under. Go ahead, Matt.
Look, just before I go on a huge rant, I suppose I should point out that Australia is really weird right now because we've got a load of right-wing people going, "Oh my God, Trump's in, yay!" We've got most of the rest of Australia going, "Huh, hey US, you suck right now." And then we've got the rest of Australia going, "Do you want to look at our own border system and what we're doing for refugees? Because Trump's talking about building a wall. We've kind of built one, so yeah, look after him backyard."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Australia really isn't in a position to say to America that you guys are fucked up, because we've done some pretty shitty things over here as well. But it's really interesting looking at what's going to happen internationally if Trump, I know this got mentioned in the chat, withdrawing from NATO, potentially withdrawing from the UN, backing out of a lot of its current engagements in especially Southeast Asia, where American influence, let's not beat around the bush here, has been fairly influential in limiting the amount of political influence countries such as China have in the region. Australia has managed to tread some very interesting fine lines between the Western American power and the rise of China by going, well, you know, we're friends with everyone, let's just keep it that way. And yes, we can't do this because of China. Yes, we can't do this because of America. If America withdraws from oceanic and Southeast Asian sphere of influence in the world, then, well, China can control Southeast Asia, and that's okay. China can more or less get Australia to do whatever it wants, and that's okay. So when you look at that, it's kind of terrifying for the rest of the world at the moment, going, how is this going to reshape our nation and our world? And if America pulls out of, say, the UN, I know Kimberly and I were having a discussion on this earlier, and we were going, well, if that happens, then we're back at the World War I League of Nations era, where that first attempt at a united failed because America went, no, we're not going to be involved. And we have we're living through an largely unprecedented run of mostly peace, the Middle East notwithstanding, and could be under threat now, which is sensationalist.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's a conversation that's happening outside of America right now.
I think that that is a very good fear that I have is when other people internationally are afraid and fearful and anxious about things too. So that's a very valid point. I just wanted to check up on Alexis. Did you want to say something? You haven't. I wasn't sure if there was anything that you wanted to bring to the table at the moment, Alexis.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, you. Sorry, I'm looking at your name on the Hangouts. Your name, Mint. Did you want to say anything, or otherwise I can move on?
I was kind of thinking, but considering we're currently talking about international things,
okay,
it's not exactly relevant.
Oh, change the topic, please.
Yeah,
please, by all
we can
means,
change the topic. Go ahead, please do.
Okay. I think it's more just like thinking about like how polarized this country is, and like it feels like it's more polarized than it's ever been. Of course, considering relatively short amounts of experience on this earth, I can't really say for sure, but it just feels like we lack empathy so much. Like, it doesn't matter what someone else is going through, because it's all about us and our fears and our ideals. We're not thinking about like how what we say and what we do affect other people, and this is coming from both sides.
Just to by the way, try to put people who are again anxious about things, about the results, just to put people at ease a little bit. There was this really awesome article that somebody had sent me, and I'll put a link again in the description, that basically said if you are very concerned about the results, it's a top 10 things that you can do to involve yourself to help with certain things, depending on what you're mostly concerned about. So it's like if you're concerned about immigration, this is what you can actively do. If you're concerned about, Muslim rights, this is what you can do. If you're concerned about women equality, this is what you can do. So I'll try to add that link in, because I think that one silver lining I can see from this is that I think it's forcing people to be a lot more proactive in their country and more proactive in their government. And if they want to see things change or want to see things not change, I think more and more people, especially the millennials area, are much more motivated to be involved and to fight for whatever it is they believe is right for them to fight for. And I think that that's something that all of us can agree, that if something you feel is right, everybody should try to fight for it. Is anyone, Evan, it looks like you have a comment. Go ahead.
So I had to find my mute button. I had a quick comment on the polarizing thing, which is that I am a reader of 538, as probably at least many of you are. And I think I have seen some articles there that show some actual data that show a real measures of increasing polarization. Where they'll, for instance, take quantitative numbers of, like, various organizations have, comes to mind right off the bat is like the NRA has ratings for representatives for how gun friendly or gun unfriendly they are. And there's all sorts of these ratings, including like, okay, how far do they appear on the political spectrum? And if you look at like, I think the graph I saw, but they had others, was for like representatives in the Colorado legislature over time. Democrats are getting more liberal, conservatives are getting more conservative, as I might have said that wrong. Democrats are getting more liberal, Republicans are getting more conservative over time. And so there's some degree of that happening, maybe for real. I don't know what the implications of that are or how to deal with it or anything like that. But I think it's a concern.
By the way, welcome back, Andrew. And I think between Andrew and Dylan and Eric, I haven't been able to hear much from you guys. If you guys have anything specific you want to say, please do. Dylan, looks like you had something you wanted to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm out.
First off, Bethany wanted to come listen on our,
Bethany.
our little journey here. But just going off of what,
you're welcome to say something too, Bethany, by the way, if you have anything that you want to share. But go ahead, Dylan. And
for the polarization that the topic we're talking about, I think that is very true. And I feel like one factor that's playing a big part in that right now is the media. Just the way they portraying portraying each side is just in and of itself tearing each other apart, and a way promoting these Facebook posts or Twitter posts of derogatory like that, and actions of not only of both sides. I mean, today at our university, we got an email from our campus's police department that somebody had attacked a Muslim student and stolen her wallet and her I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, her hijab, her headwear.
Hijab.
But then come to find out that she actually fabricated the story and made it all up. It was just a little heartbreaking that, both sides, it just brings to light that both sides have a lot to work on, and we really need to just work as a team to get something out of this, because if we're just seeing each other on the media and then getting more polarized and pushing each other away instead of pulling each other together, then I don't know how far we can get with that kind of mentality.
I completely agree with you, Dylan, that some of the hate crimes that people have been posting on Twitter have been proven to be false, and that disappoints me a lot, because I think it greatly degenerates and insults the actual hate crimes when they do happen. It's don't do that, because it doesn't help your case. It shoots us in the foot. It shoots everybody in the foot, and that's not a cool thing to do just to make a point, because I think that if a point is going to be made, it's going to happen. Don't make it happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly, because that just makes people more paranoid.
Exactly. Hey, Bethany.
Hey.
By the way, completely off topic, just for a second, congratulations on your engagement.
Thank you so much.
Very excited for the both of you. But
Yeah.
Bethany, I would love to hear from you if you're willing to. You don't have to. If you want to share some of your
Sure.
thoughts or views on the results.
Well, so I mean, obviously we live in Louisiana. It's very, it's a very like, I feel like conservative Republican area.
Yes.
And I feel like where you live and where you're from definitely has like an influence on you, as to like what maybe where your stances are. But I try, like I feel like me and Dylan both are very open-minded, and we try to like make our decisions based on kind of what, like where we believe we line up the most. One of the biggest things for me being that we work in healthcare, and I am a type 1 diabetic, was the basically the Affordable Care Act, the way that we're going to pay for healthcare. I've seen a lot of negative effects with it, and for me that was like one of the biggest impacts for me was that people just couldn't afford it. People couldn't afford it. They weren't reimbursing the hospital that I work at, so people were being laid off. Having friends just out of work, having to leave, having patients that couldn't afford care anymore, and having to watch them try to make ends meet and they can't do it because they just can't afford it anymore. I mean, so that was just one thing that like I particularly really cared about and was really passionate about in this election. And so, whenever you hear Trump saying that they're not going to do it anymore, they're going to find another path to take to try to figure out how to pay for healthcare. That was really exciting for me. So initially, like, when Trump wins, your initial thought is that, okay, I'm excited. I'm excited to see changes in these areas.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also see changes in other areas where you may not want to see that change happen.
Yeah.
And so that's scary. And I think that the scariest part of it is the reaction from everyone afterwards. The people that are really excited, and rather than being excited but being humble and understanding of how the other people may feel, hurts. Like, I saw pictures from the university of people riding on sidewalks like, F you and your beliefs, it's all gone now. You have like that. I'm a very emotional person. Sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, no one should ever be treated like that or talked to like that. And for the other side of it too, to see videos on Facebook and stuff of people on the street saying, "Did you vote for Donald Trump?" and then, jumping them.
Mm-hmm.
That hurts me because I love my country. I always will, no matter who's leading it. And I hope that no matter who leads it, we can all stand together and move past all the violence and the anger. It's just unnecessary. So I don't know. It's hard either way. Like, somebody's going to lose. Somebody's going to be hurt. So I don't know.
Can I, just to piggyback off of what Bethany says, can I just say just how beautiful you all are here on the panel? Not only those of you who are here, but those of you who came before. I mean, look at us. Like, we're different genders. We're from different backgrounds, racial backgrounds, religious backgrounds. Some of us voted for Trump. Some of us voted for Hillary. Some of us didn't vote. Some of us voted third party. Some of us voted for Bernie. Internationally even, not all of us here are Americans, and, different shades and different views. And yet, one person is pro-Obamacare, another one not so much. If any of you guys out there have given up on humanity, or have given up on the hope that America can come out of this and be, united and try to have an understanding with each other. This is proof that it can happen, folks. So I encourage you guys out there, whether you're participating in the panel or if you're watching, to have these conversations, because I think it's very important right now to just help you to not only, I think it's therapeutic, and I think it's a skill that you need to practice as we move forward and going into the next year, because that's the only way that America, I think, is going to get through this. And that also goes beyond nation bounds internationally too. So if you take anything from this, just know that despite where you stand during the election, even if you were undecided and didn't vote, there is common ground. There is hope for us. We can have a civilized conversation and an understanding of each other. And, that's what it's all about. That really is. So thank you guys. But I'm not stopping it here. I'm just thanking you guys for that. I'm looking at the list right now. It looks like David does need to bow out. So can I just let him give some thoughts really quickly? David, if you want to.
Well, I think I said my piece before.
Okay.
You all know where I stand on this. Yes, good luck, everyone. I hope you guys will do all right, and everything will turn out for the best, and that I'm super overreacting. And it's gonna be nice and sweet and no problems at all. So yeah, good luck, have fun, and I'm holding my. I'm not sarcastic. I really hope things work out for you guys. Really.
Thank you, David.
You should say goodbye in Swedish.
Hej då, ha det bra och vi hörs senare.
Nice. Thank you, David, for joining us.
Bye.
Have a good night. Get some sleep, please.
Thank you.
It's like 6 a.m. over there or something.
Yep.
I think Andrew wanted to hop in. Andrew, go right ahead.
Oh, well, thanks. Let me skip ahead in line. This has been something that I've been really perplexed with for a long time, and that's our current two-party system. Don't think it was at all intended to be this way from the very start. And then about someone has to lose. I found it very appealing. I don't know everything about Europe, and I don't know that I like everything about it, but a lot of them have a parliamentary system, and that seems far more democratic to me. If 40% of the population believe this and this candidate represents their views, then 40% of them get into the governments and are able to make changes, and they're kind of forced to work together. Or now we just have gridlock, and everyone feels like if my candidate doesn't win, then there's nothing for me, nothing whatsoever. And that could be fixed up in not too hard of a thing, at least as far as the amount of work that you have to do. It's got to change people's attitudes and minds, of course, but why that is not even in a consideration. Look at the system, look at the situation that we end up in. It's not just these candidates. This is going to keep happening over and over and over again in a system that is so poorly designed and run.
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. That's a very good point, Andrew. Thank you. Mint, did you want to say something?
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
The first thing is actually jumping off of the two-party system and how it wasn't really ever, our country wasn't meant to run on that. I actually have just kind of a funny thing, and it's like a nurse waking up George Washington. She says, "You've been in a coma since 1799. He's like, Washington's like, "Oh boy, I can't wait to see my perfect no political party system of government." So I just thought that was funny. Died lighten the mood slightly. Gain anxiety. But
did you? I think you had another point too.
Yeah, I had 4 or 5.
Okay.
I lost all of them.
Oh, I'm
One of
sorry.
them was actually today at my school. There was a fight. about the whole election, and our principal went on the announcements and did like a very long spiel about respecting one another and our opinions. And this Hispanic girl and this non-Hispanic girl got into a fight, and then at some point the non-Hispanic girl called the Hispanic girl a racial slur, which I will not repeat.
Mm-hmm.
And things got physically violent from that point on both sides. But it was just kind of like, I've been kind of doom and gloom about this whole thing. I kind of fell into that, category of people that felt like, gosh, we're not going to, return from this. Things aren't going to get better. This is like rock bottom for us. And that just kind of like reimbursed that. But, being part of this chat has kind of helped and made it feel like we as a people can be civilized even in this volatile time of ours.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. That's exactly why I thought this was a good idea, because I didn't want this to just be me talking about my views on a vlog, because I think that this type of forum is a lot more efficient, especially because of the fact that we have many people having differing views and not only having a chance to speak, but also having a chance to listen, to actually absorb what everybody's views are, letting them know what their current concerns are, so that hopefully we can have a better understanding and make sense of a lot of the things that many people are still, again, processing in their minds about what's going on in the country and the rest of the world. So I think that Matt wanted to go, and then Evan.
Sure. I mean, I sort of wanted to go back to what Dylan and Bethany were both saying earlier about the media, and I think it's being touched in the main chat, whole echo chamber and Facebook, and I think they were saying that about 63% of people's main news source is now Facebook, and Facebook, as we know, specifically curates what you see according to engage with. So unless you are active media from viewpoints than yours, you're not guide is actually saying. And I know, example, I'm one of you. We're Facebook friends, and I post a lot of things from more left-leaning media. So on your feed, whereas unless you and other people are going to be posting things from the more conservative media, you might not see that as often. And it's really a question of how we deal with that, because a lot of the mainstream media that people like to say are going to be left-leaning. So a lot of the big newspapers, all that, with the possible exception of Fox and the Murdoch Empire, are going to be leftists. And the reasons why people were actually voting for Trump, and there was a lot of dismissiveness and a lot of people going, oh yeah, they're just all, we've already been covered, we shouldn't do it again. But how people communicate to each other is changing, and we are constantly moving ourselves into these online spheres where we only talk to people who think the way that we do. Slightly off topic, I had a really big angry discussion with someone who's probably slightly more left-wing than I am. I know, boggle the thought. On about how we shouldn't be allowing conservative people to vote. We shouldn't be allowing them to have any say in what was going on. I'm like, well, hang on a second. In Australia, we have a libertarian in Parliament, and he was saying, well, I'm very much anti-gun control. I am pro marriage equality because I don't think that the church should have anything to do with the way that a civil union is sort of set up. And one of their arguments was, well, we shouldn't work with them. We just shouldn't work with them at all. We can't. They've got some abhorrent views on women, on guns, and it's like, well, hang on. This is how democracy works. You work together with people on common ground, regardless of what areas you may not agree with them on. And if you don't want that as a left-leaning liberal person, then you're not actually wanting a democracy. What you're asking for is a dictatorship of your views. And it almost seems to me that what we've seen in America, that's what's happening to our society, to America. And I don't know how we stop that other than by saying, well, can we consume other media? Can we change the media landscape so that it's not all about clickbait, that's not all about advertising? Because the Western media is run off advertising. It doesn't exist unless someone pays for it. So unless you're going to go out and buy a subscription to independent news organizations to enable them to tell journalism as journalism regardless of what advertising revenue comes in, the only way they survive is if they post sometimes not unfactual, inflammatory, over-the-top clickbait that may or may not have a basis in reality, so that they get the eyeballs and they get the revenue. So in a sense, broken capitalism, potentially, that's an entirely different topic, but the capitalization of the Western media is one of the reasons that we have these echo chamber effects. I mean, I think one of the newspapers actually set up two different feeds, a conservative feed and a liberal feed, and if you check that out, the difference in just what you see on Facebook.
Thank you for all of those. The conversation with your friend is
it's
brings
scary.
up a lot of things. Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that. Evan, you want to go next?
Yeah, so I had some thoughts on what Andrew said about sort of the structure of voting and representation. I'm not exactly sure how interesting these will be, but I'll toss them out there anyway. I think that this is kind of a substantial problem, and I'd like to see some kind of fix for it as well. I don't exactly know what it would be, but I've thought, like, if you imagine sort of hypothetical questions of someone makes you dictator for 5 minutes and you can make one policy change, what would it be? And for me, I think it would be some, like, I call it a meta-political change of something to make it easier for more viewpoints to come in or something like that. And sort of what I'm thinking now is maybe have proportional representation at the state level. So each state sets the number of representatives based on that state's popular vote, but then you still have the House that's made up of different states with their representatives. I don't exactly know what the implications of this would be. And then sort of for president, would want to some kind of ranked voting system, instant runoff or whatever, something like that. And then the other thing has come up in discussion a few times is the influence of the Electoral College. And so this is, as probably most of you know, the second time in the last 16 years that the Electoral College has reversed the popular vote for the first time in like a century. And so if you are of the mind that the Electoral College is not a good thing, the natural thing to jump to is constitutional amendment. But you don't actually have to do that. There's something called the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact, which I encourage you to check up on Wikipedia if you're interested. It's something that can probably be done just at the state level much, much easier than the passage of a constitutional amendment. And especially if you're in a state with a state legislature that is democratic, you might consider writing your representative if that's something that you'd like to see. Not to use this to promote viewpoints or something like that. So I'm not taking a position on Electoral College, good or bad. Just if you think that it's bad, this is how you can go about trying to improve things.
It's not really related on the opinion of the Electoral College. I remember that on one of the groups I had with my friends was during one examples when everyone was kind of getting heated about this and upset about the results of the election and such. Apparently, they were under the misconception because one of my friends back in England and such, that how elections worked out here, they thought it was more like voting parliament out there, so that actually mattered and couldn't be vetoed by the Electoral College and such. And they inadvertently ended up criticizing people for not voting. I personally couldn't vote this year because of bureaucratic nonsense. I wasn't registered to the right precincts. We had to go 2 cities over and such, and we were too tired from my fiance was too tired from work, and depression and stuff like that kept us from doing that and such. But I highly regret not pushing myself to go drive a good 45 minutes. Drive. Half-blind person shouldn't be driving, but yes, driving 45 minutes to put my ballot in, stand in the line for probably 6 hours after driving 45 minutes and drive 45 minutes back again and stuff like that. Yeah, I still have a huge regret and stuff like that. And it's not even guaranteed that was going to work. We just knew that we were registered somewhere in that city area. We might have to go to that one, so. But, yeah, it's the book. Hello, love. That's right. You were registered in Missouri. Yeah. You fancy this point they were registered in Missouri. That's another state over from where we're living. So that would have been an additional 6 hours. So that's right. I forgot about that part. So yeah, literally, we were kind of. I was going to say something more rude instead of I'm not going to use that language. Screwed on that. Yeah, let's go with that. That's all.
Since Ray mentioned the Electoral College, and several people have also mentioned the Electoral College, and I know that many people believe that we should consider getting rid of the Electoral College. I do have a YouTube video, I'll put a link in the description, that talks about how exactly the Electoral College works and why it was placed in the first place. And I have to admit, before you start making up your mind on whether you believe the Electoral College should remain or should be removed, I highly recommend you watch that video, because I think that it's like 90% of that video I had no idea. I had no clue. And I think many people in America, that might be the same for you. So just a little bit of tidbit of information for there. Eric, I haven't heard from you lately. I just wanted to check up to make sure that there wasn't something that you wanted to bring up.
I mean, I guess maybe on the discussion of the Electoral College, I guess maybe like one of the things I guess it would be there is because then it gives some states whose population is like, I'm trying to like think of like in the top of my head some states, but like a lot of the Midwestern states, if it was done by population, a lot of those states won't have a say in whatsoever. Whereas like states like California, Pennsylvania, or not Pennsylvania, California, Texas, or New York, a lot of the states that have the cities, big populations, they would be able to kind of like have a more of an impact. So again, yeah, it's very tricky how they would actually, how to reform the political system. There definitely needs to be something. A lot of it's going to have to come down to the people who are actually in that position, in that political position, which will probably have to be having to take money out of the politics, because a lot of the politicians, I feel like, are going by the whims of who's donating to them, the benefactors, and less about the commonwealth of what the people actually represent. And I think that might be, if we can address the issue there first, like actually start becoming a party for the people instead of for certain interests, then that it would kind of help kind of start moving things in the right direction.
Does anyone else have anything they want to say?
Interestingly, I'm looking at the chat again. Kimberly just pointed out that in Maine they have 4 electoral college votes, and the winner doesn't take all because each district's vote goes to the candidate. So Clinton got 3 and Trump got 1. So that sounds like a very well, it sounds a bit fairer, I suppose, from the outside than some of the other states.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
Nebraska does something similar. I forget exactly how they split it, but I think those are the 2 states that have lost electoral splits. And there's other compromises you can imagine. So, for example, like the Electoral College is in some sense set up like the Senate, but it's basically the House plus the Senate, except with electors. And you could imagine a kind of thing where the House portion of the Electoral College vote goes with the Senate, or goes with the popular national vote. The Senate part goes with the other things. So there's some interesting compromises along the way. And it's mostly an academic exercise, I think, to think about what would be useful, but it's still interesting to think about.
Anything else that anyone wants to say before we move towards the close? I know we've been at it for about 3 hours now, so
I'm in it's a little silly, but we had this happen in the 1960s. I wouldn't mind another space race sort of situation to point us all, push us together, point us towards something greater that we can do together. And get over our kind of trivial, smaller differences. Let's get to Mars. Let's do it. Huh?
Some sort of common goal. That's a good idea.
Yeah, that is a good idea. And it's kind of crazy to think, this is kind of maybe, I don't know how off topic this is, but it's science related, that at the end of our lifetime, we just may actually see people colonizing Mars, or I saw something a month ago. This group wanted to build a space station and have their own political, I guess, quote unquote, country in outer space orbiting Earth, and all these different kind of scientific achievements or desires or journeys that people want to start taking. It's very interesting to see how it takes not only, America, but the whole world in the future.
Mm-hmm. Anything else? Bethany, anything else? I'm sorry.
Oh, no, if Bethany wants to go, absolutely.
Yeah, I want to hear Bethany's voice more than Dylan's voice.
No, I'm good. Honestly, I was telling him, this entire thing was really nice because kind of like we were saying earlier, you're friends with people on Facebook, and your friends and the people you surround yourself with typically kind of follow the same views in a sense that you do. So you don't always get to hear from people in other places of life. So it was just nice to be able to listen in and hear what everyone had to say, and be able to so civil and so nice, and not as aggressive as I think other things that we've seen.
I think this whole election, even before the results, have been hard on everybody, has been hard on all sides. And I know that even if you got what you wanted out of the election, that doesn't mean that you guys aren't hurting either. I know that some people might feel that they're hurting more, but I think that at the end of the day, it's been rough on everybody. I don't want to belittle, what a lot of people are fearing, but I think there's value in at least realizing and understanding that. Was Matt trying to say something? I think Matt.
Well, I guess I just wanted to say that as much as it would be nice to have something to bring everyone together, one of the big issues that I think America specifically is currently facing at the moment is that there's, also the UK is facing at the moment, is that there's a lot of talk about making people different and giving different groups of people a different place in society based on a social hierarchy of some description. And unless that can be addressed, of where you sit in the current social hierarchy, unless that can be addressed and dealt with, I don't think that any external goal is going to bring people together when there are groups within society actively trying to destroy that sense of unity and equality. So I think from the side of the fence of people who have predominantly been supporting the idea of a Clinton presidency, that's the main on which needs to be understood, I think. And I guess that's one of those things that is not going to go away under Trump. And the hope that I think I've been hearing from people who have voted for Trump is that they're hoping for a really big shakeup and a really big amount of change, and something that will completely change the way that America functions, because I think everyone agrees that it's broken. You know, I get that. I hope that you're right. I think that what you may not understand is that there's a lot of people fearing that they may be a casualty along the way, and I don't mean that in a metaphoric sense.
Yeah.
That's it.
Go ahead, Ray.
It isn't right. Talking about that makes me remember English. Let's try it again. Take two. It makes me think sort of as review and looking at all the stuff I was seeing for what as a result for the Trump presidency with biggest worries, besides the fact that I know I'm going to lose, there's a possibility of his policies what I'm going to lose and such, and how that can affect people around me and stuff like that. I honestly, for me, it's more of a what's called the call to the void or whatever and stuff like that. Wondered exactly what would happen, because I was hoping that Trump wouldn't get elected. Of course, as I've said, it's pretty much just said my standpoint as and stuff like that. But if it would, what the world would be like, I guess I'm going to find out what that is now. To me, it seems fathom what that is, because all the things that I know that affects me personally and such. But also in a standpoint, like, it's so hard to imagine a man like Trump as president, even if I didn't disagree with a lot of his standpoints. And that's one of the biggest things that confuse me, is I get also why it's part of the draw, is someone that's so different and shake up in the system and such that that will really shake things up and everything. And like constantly I'm wondering, like, it's like a lot of people have said a long time, so they, you know, the performance and so I think, and he gave a pretty presidential speech actually. It was actually pretty presidential, and I was watching, it's like, well, okay, I knew this guy couldn't be all crazy and such. But I wish he would have put that more forward and stuff like that. It's really scary to have a person that puts on all the crazy, ridiculous, bombastic, ridiculous things and stuff like that, when I want to try to look at him as a person, but he doesn't let you actually look at him as a reasonable, rational level person for that.
Right.
It's still scary now, because even as I'm trying to look at, I was like, I really want to look at these reasons for that, but also because he does that, I'm like, which one of these is the actors for that? I know it's somewhere got to be at least in between. It definitely can't be that crazy. And maybe he's actually extremely way more moderate than he seems. I mean, I know he's like went back and forth and stuff on a lot of his different views, and but one of the things I hear him consistently kind of say, despite supporting conversion therapy, seems interested in trying to work in the open LGBTQ community. And so, one of the biggest things that both sides, I remember noticing, is that both sides were concerned about what to expect from either presidency and such. Mm-hmm. While one was pandery, the other one was radical. And I actually had noticed, so there's like, on either side, and a lot of people have said nobody likes either candidate and stuff like that. And honestly, I was like, it's politics that happens and stuff like that. You're not going to get a perfect politician. People are going to pander and stuff like that. We have to be pragmatic in our thoughts and stuff like that, just like the politics. To try to work towards those things. Pragmatism is sometimes the way to meet in the middle. But yeah, it was just something I wanted to bring up as I thought, so that when it's like, now that this has happened and such, and seeing the more reasonable sense of that, I still don't know what to expect from it, from all of this result. From president, from what I expect from president. And that's been the biggest worry for that, because there are indirectly and unintentionally, technically, threats to stuff that could effectively hurt me and the ones I care about and such. and then there's significant sense, and that's the only thing that's scary about it, really, in the end. I'm having trouble articulating myself. I apologize.
That's fine. No, you're fine. You're fine, Ray. Mint, I think you're bowing out soon because I think you're not feeling very well. I want to give you a chance. If you have anything last-minute things to say, feel free to.
All I've really got to say is, to quote my favorite Beatle, Ringo Starr, peace and love.
Yes.
So,
Mint,
night,
has
everyone.
this helped? Has this helped you at all? Because I know that you said you're struggling with this a lot. So has this helped you?
A lot.
Good.
I feel a lot more at ease.
I'm glad.
Level-headed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem. I think this is what. Yeah. Good night. I think this is what it's all about. I do want to start moving towards wrapping things up because it has been a long day for many people. But again, I don't want to chop off the conversation. If anyone has any last-minute things they want to say before I start moving towards the exit, everything was good. Okay.
Of course, it's Ray and me.
Okay. Ray,
did you want to go first?
Ray.
No. I like your voice. You go first.
Ray and,
Thank you.
Ray and Matt, and if anyone has anything else to say, let me know in the chats. Otherwise, you can hold your peace.
One thing I think I do want to say to everybody, I suppose, in America is I don't understand, sitting over here, why everyone was surprised that Trump won. I really don't get that. I mean, looking at the historical precedents, specifically, I keep talking about it, but the Brexit vote, I mean, Trump tapped into the exact same feeling of disempowerment that a lot of working class, predominantly white people have been feeling in America, in the UK, and in Australia. So I don't understand why people were surprised that he won, and I don't understand why, especially Democrats in America, are so willing to not engage with that particular section of the population, because they've got some very strong concerns, they've got some very real issues, and they're being left behind by the globalization and economic development that we're seeing in the cities, and that is being championed by the liberal left across the globe. So I remember saying once Trump won the nomination, and well, that's it, he's president, that's it, that's the end of it. Really, he's going to win. I know the media talked up a very good show of that. No, Clinton was going to win. Well, no, because you're once again ignoring the vast majority of people who have real grievances that you, I mean the media, aren't talking to. So in terms of coming together, I think everyone needs to be able to listen to each other in terms of their grievances and treat each other like people and less like objects.
That's a very good point, Matt. Ray, go ahead.
Ultimately, there's a lot of getting things off my chest and talking in this chat has been really great for me too. I just wanted to say that. Different thoughts that I've heard from everyone, and one of the biggest things that something that always been gravitate towards is that is having a central way of peace, and I've naturally gravitated to diplomatic and working together for things and such. And this has been such a polarizing election event, and there's been so many things that I have my ear to the ground for so many different things going on in the world, from everything like that. That has been just even more scary for these events, from like for Brexit and such. As a former citizen of the UK, so that was crazy to hear about, and then this came out here and everything, and it's like these polarized views. And one of the biggest things I was concerned about, so that I've seen in certain media and stuff that no side is willing to talk to each other, and so that, and have been demonizing each other so much. I mean, I can certainly understand why a lot of people. I'm personally intimidated by the idea of what Trump will do and such, but I know he's still a man, he's still a person, and stuff like that. And honestly, in a weird way, he has an adorable smile at certain points. So he can't be all bad. Can he? I don't know. I guess Satan could smile beautifully as well, but Satan was an angel, right? I'm not even Christian. I'm not sure I use Satan. Anyways, so is this? I really want to come down and meet in these middle parties with him, and this it's been really good to see this happen and such, because all of this with the polarization has not just been polarized us into this weirdly bipartisan system, so that or drawing people who are independent, like they need to choose a side or need to be scared and run to a side. I'm hoping that as things come to a closeness with that, and after such extremes, that people would start coming back to a middle again, because we jumped from one huge extreme, one extreme side that have been I'm not sure what everyone's opinions with it, but Obama was kind of a democratic renaissance and stuff like that for Democrats. In my opinion, because it helped a lot of things for me that were from democratic standpoints and such. Whether I agreed with all his policies or not, I can't have argued that they were at least some way effective or worked in some way. Maybe not perfectly, but that's the arts of politics.
Mm-hmm.
A mess. It's just throw it onto the canvas and stuff like that. It seems like sometimes. And the fact that I've seen, like I said, with my friends with each other and trying to run away from each other and stuff like that, when we were all agreeing on the same part, but all talking so that, and the more talking we do so that, the more we start realizing we have to stick together. We have to come together, and that also means coming together with people from the other side that we don't necessarily see eye to eye with, to try to work this out. And I'm really, really hoping, with the fact that I know that a lot of these people and hearing these arguments that can be reasonable people, can step off their high horses long enough to talk, come to a more unifying viewpoint. So that is, I really want to keep moving towards that. So then I really hope this type of conversation can continue, and people try to figure these things out, so that, as opposed to just sensationalizing and making it seem like you have to gravitate to an extreme or a side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, Ray. I totally agree with you there. Andrew wanted to say something before he bows out.
Thank you very much. And I dropped out in the middle. It's been nice and refreshing to have this conversation and see some familiar faces and other enjoyable. To reiterate something I mentioned at the beginning, that for those, when I came on where I saw Hark was setting this up, I kind of assumed that most people here would have been voting for Hillary and most people here would be liberal leaning. And it's been nice to see the diversity, certainly. But my leaving part, if it helps, are two things. One, I believe many people who voted for Trump don't like him. He was the best of a bad situation, and they think that he'll address greater concerns, even though they personally don't find him at all worthwhile. That's kind of where I ended up. I filled him out on the ballot, not because I wanted him to be president, but because I didn't want more of the same or even worse kind of government taking over more things and running them poorly, et cetera, et cetera. But nowhere in my decision and nowhere in the decision-making process of many people that I've talked with does it come in that we hate Muslims, we hate gays. It's not even a thought. For many people, concerned about the politics, they're concerned about country and their family and the future. I think the media and certain echo chambers have ridiculously overblown the sense of racism and other such things. I don't really think most people think that way. And certainly not the majority of Trump people. There are some, of course, and some people who take this opportunity to do horrible things, but most aren't. The second thing, I think Trump is, as you saw in the speech, I would suspect that the blustering during the campaign was that to get attention, to get the things stirred up. I'd be really, really doubtful that all the things that he promises or said during the campaign are at all his actual intentions, or will actually be made real, like kicking Muslims out of the country. And it's no way that that's going to happen. So I think we can rest a little bit easier. It's easy for me to say, but I know it's at least my thoughts that I and many others have no intention of doing anything to good, caring Americans who just want the best for us all. So hopefully that that perspective is helpful. That just because they voted Trump doesn't mean that they hate you or want to do bad things for you. And maybe just do something like this. Take the time to get to understand why did they do that, and you may be surprised that there's a lot more going on that has nothing to do with what the ranting and shouting masses have to say. With that, I got to hop off, but thank you, Hark, and everyone else. This was great. Love yourselves, love each other. Happy gaming. Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Andrew, for being here. Awesome. Okay. All right. Well, I think I'm going to go ahead and close things out. I'm just saying, please don't let this be the end of the conversation. Again, like you saw the diversity in our panel today, different ages, different races, different religions, different views, different sides of every single coin, and unimaginable different countries too. So it is possible for us to come together and have a open, civil dialogue. I encourage you guys to continue the conversation down in the comments below, again, as long as you keep it mature, if not constructive, then not destructive, and respectful of each other, as always. But those of you who are watching should already know that. And if this is still a tough time for you, and I think for many of you it will be a tough time for a while, try to find people that you can have an open discussion for. Politics, I know, is one of those subjects that, can be very hairy to talk about. Many people advise against talking about it. But I think that during times like these, it can be important and it can be effective if you know the right people to talk to. If it makes you more comfortable and you're trying to deal with this, if you're going through these stages of grief because of the results of this election, and if it makes you feel better to talk to people who are of like mind of you, who have the same views as you, start with that. And there's a sense of togetherness there. And then once you're ready, if you do know someone who was satisfied with the result of the election, that you might have differing views for, but you believe has the kind of person that would be able to talk to you in a way that is civil and in a way that is constructive and understanding, and at minimum, someone who can agree to disagree with you, I encourage you to do that. Because like Andrew said, I think many of you, both sides will be surprised at what people have to say about why they voted the way they voted or why they supported the candidate that they supported. To quote Halasair or Rachel, it's all in the why. And I think that is the start of it, is knowing why, what are people's motivations in doing what they did or supporting who they supported, and, why they believe in what they believe in, why their opinions are the way they are. And that really goes with life in general. So continue this conversation with your friends, with your family, if you feel comfortable with that. And, obviously, if you guys want to do this again in the near future, just to check up on things, like get a pulse, I guess, on how the United States is doing with the new election, I'm completely open to that. And for those of you, again, who are big Trump supporters, who are happy, maybe not so happy, but, are at least satisfied with the election, be patient with the rest of us. I do urge you to be patient with us. Some of us are going to lash out. Some of us are going to rant over things. And, just understand if the roles were reversed. Try to be patient, understanding, and sympathetic, and try to know that we're trying to heal, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to come around and come together just like we're going here. And the patience, like I said, and understanding goes both ways. So that's all I have to say, guys. Thank you for watching. And if you have watched this far. I appreciate that you guys are viewership. I hope that this has been helpful to many of you, if not in an educational way, but maybe as a way for you to try to get a little bit more insight and understanding from different views and from different perspectives. I hope that does help you in a way that might be therapeutic. And just know that we're here to support each other and to try to do, move as forward as we can, despite the fact that some people might have differing views of which direction forward is. I think, like, generally, we all want to move forward one way or another. So let's try to do that. And as I always say, and I can't say that I have ever said this any more genuinely than I have ever said it before, please, everybody, love yourselves. And please, love each other. Good night.